And welcome in and back to the SMITE Pro League. Week 5 is about to begin. My name's Hinduman. Joining me on the desk over there. Yeah, I played the right way. I'm a god. Is the one and only Mifflin. Miff, how you doing today?
I'm a little bit distracted. I'm looking at these paintings behind you, and I just can't peel my eyes off them.
Yeah, that's my home city, that one. That's the best one to look at there. Hope you're all happy and excited for today's action. We've got some great games this weekend. Obviously, the SEC LAN will be next weekend, but this week, we've got some big games. Renegades versus Radiance, to start us off this week, followed by Obey, and the final times we'll see Weekend in action in the Pro League, at least for the foreseeable future, up against Rival. Following that, some huge games at the end of the week too. Sunday, keep an eye on that Sanguine versus Radiance. I want to see who comes out on top there. Will the Vamos boys continue to? Well, Vamos. Let's have a look at the standings and see exactly how this all plays out so far. Sanguine, top of the shop. 5 wins, 1 loss so far. Meanwhile, at the bottom, Obey struggling. But really what we should be talking about here, Mifflin, is Renegades and this Radiance team. Opposite ends of the spectrum, 4 wins, 1 loss for Radiance, 1 win, 4 losses for Renegades. And that's the game we start off with today.
I think you got off to the right foot there when you said Renegades versus Renegades, because that really is the narrative. They play against themselves in that mid-game. They really struggle to find their footing once they establish a lead. It seems like they try to dance around the fire giant a little bit too long, and they kind of get inside their own heads. I think if they can break out of that shell, they're going to see a lot more success.
How do you feel about the chemistry of the team, though, Mifflin? I mean, from what we've seen of them early days, they seem to have got along a little bit better, a little bit quicker than we may have expected. But still, they're only 1-4, right? So it shows that they're trying to get things going, but they're still struggling.
They are struggling. I don't think you can really chalk it up to the cohesion of the team anymore. It really is coming down to a shot caller needs to be established a little bit more strongly, start taking these more risky calls. It seems like Renegades, not unlike Sanguine, don't take any huge risks. They won't pull Fire Giant unless they know that the majority of the enemy team's dead. They won't really move in for these risky fights around the Gold Fury, but they don't have that same backbone that Sanguine has, which is the most immaculate team fighting phase in SPL history. So once they figure out just that early game objective, I think they're really going to start doing a lot better. But you can't not talk about Lasbra. He's had a fantastic season.
Yeah, when we talk about Lasbra a little bit more, I think it's a good point, honestly, Miff, is that Lasbra at the moment, highest kills in his team, but he's also very much on the death side as well. He's dying a lot. This is very reminiscent of what we saw from Captain Twig and Rival last year. He's willing to go in, make the aggressive plays, but he does end up dying a lot of the time for it. Him and SoloOrTroll for Renegades are definitely at the forefront for that.
In terms of God Pool, that really does lend itself. Lasbra plays Pele, he plays Hunbots, he plays these backline divers who's going to go in. And your main goal is trade yourself, get 1, maybe 2 kills. If you die, you've already done your job, respawn, do it again. Lasbra is completely comfortable doing that. SOT's aggressive play might play into his a little bit, his KD ratio. He likes to sit in the front of the fights. He likes to separate the entire enemy team from the objective. If you see Renegades go for Fire Giant, it's very likely that SOT is sitting on the enemy speed buff.
Well, speaking about Fire Giant and the way Renegades play at the moment, this week we've got a bit of a special for you. It's the Aussie coaches both involved in this game, and we sat down with Ro for an interview before this game to see his thoughts on this matchup.
Thanks very much, guys. Here with Ro, the head coach of the Renegades. We're talking to him today about their matchup against Radiance. Now, Ro, we got to kind of take a look back, I think, first before talking about the matchup today. The team's 1-4 in the standings. A close set against Sanguine has you guys kind of knocking on the door of a 2-3 start instead of a 1-4. As a coach, though, what's the messaging been like to the team through these first few weeks?
Stay strong, stay put, really. It's been a long road already this year, and we've got a much longer road ahead. We knew it would be a slow start to the season, so we're not too bothered by the results. It's disappointing regardless. For myself personally, I haven't been on a lower end team, or at least a team that's lower ending in the standings ever. At least not since my Australian playing days. So it's come with unique challenges in keeping the team motivated and things like that. But it is also easy in a way with this team because we are motivated by losses and learn from losses a lot more than other teams do. Previous teams I've been on have been annoyed by losses and frustrated more than anything. So, in a way, we get to sit back and have a conversation and watch those games back, which makes my job pretty easy because they're all smart guys. They have a lot of ideas, and we usually come up with something and a lot of reasons of why we lost, and it ends up being a positive experience in the end.
Well, that's good. I mean, the mindset is half the battle, and it seems like
Right.
this is a team where mindset is certainly a strong point. And kind of another strong point I think we've all seen through the first few weeks has been in the jungle. Lasbra's had himself standout performance, and it's a meta where junglers are so important. 4 of the top 6 kill players, stat-wise, are from the jungle. One of those is Lasbra. What have you seen from him in the first 5 games you guys have played so far?
Look, I didn't know what to expect from Lasbra coming into the start of the year, but he turns out he's actually one of the best in the jungle by far of just like hard carrying, which I didn't expect at all, but people don't see him outside of the game either. Around the house, he's fantastic. Makes my job super easy in terms of like comms and in-game leader stuff, which is hard to teach as well because you have to teach a person confidence. But he already has that. So it made my job really easy. He's probably the person I give some of the least attention to because he's already got the skills that he needs. He just needs a team around him and just extra information given to him and things like that. And then it just all comes down to strategy, which I can give him as well.
Absolutely. And thinking of strategy, you guys got a big one against Radiance today, and their last showing was against Rival, and that set, to be honest, wasn't particularly all that close. Is there anything you saw maybe that Rival was able to do that you take away and maybe try to implement into your game plan?
Yeah, I think this matchup is more interesting than most people might think after last week because, in my opinion, us and Radiance, we lost in the same way. So we should be changing a lot of things, and it's going to be like a chess game of like what exactly or what we think the reasons are why we lost and how we change them. So it's basically me against Biggie for the most part in terms of strategy. And changing completely what we did last week, because if they do the same thing they did last week, they'll lose to us by far. If we do the same thing, it's going to be the same story the opposite way around. So I think at least game 1 is going to be a complete story of the coaches and in which direction we go in. Yeah,
it's kind of the 6-man conversation there, and I guess kind of final conversation piece. Then we sort of have to ask it. Where's the confidence at going into this one? I mean, obviously springboarding off the previous topic. I would say pretty high for you guys. Do you think that this is a set where you guys come out with the win?
Yeah, no, I'm 100% confident, which isn't saying a lot because I'm confident going into every set. But Radiance is a team we've been watching because they've been at the top of the ladder for a long time.
Absolutely.
So I feel like I've done my study, 10 times over for them. So as a coach, I'm really confident. As players, we're playing confidently and we've had a good week of practice. So I don't think we could be more prepped. So I'm happy to face them.
That's good, and it's awesome to look at because as a team that's had struggles, the confidence is still there, and that's something for you guys to build on. Ro, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for talking with me, and good luck today.
Thank you.
That was Coach Ro from the Renegades, and a very interesting talking point is how confident Ro seems about this matchup. Biggest talking point was what he said, like, if Biggie hasn't changed things with this Radiance roster, they feel they could win this set. This is really interesting to me, especially with the fact that, Renegades are currently 1-4, Radiance 4-1 myth. Like, that's a lot of confidence to have in your team.
I think he said literally 100% confidence going into Radiance. We have to see whether or not that's going to be hubris. We'll find out at the tail end of this set. But I like the confidence. It shows that knows that his squad is willing to grow. He said that he's not worried about too much going on outside of really anything. Complete confidence in your jungler is something that's absolutely crucial to have in a team. If Ro's given us the vote of confidence, I think there's going to be a lot to see here.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing is we now turn our attention towards Radiance. Their first loss was last week up against Rival, and now they need to bounce back with a vengeance. And against the Renegades team that have been struggling at the start, this is one they will be looking to put away where possible. What is it you think they need to adapt to from last time, Mifflin? Like we heard Ro talk there a little bit about how they played last week. Ro and the boys of Renegades are ready for that. What do you think they need to adjust to this time around?
I mean, the one time we saw Radiance fall is when the enemy team really abused the long lane. They made sure that Aror couldn't get off the ground, and once you shut down Aror, it makes it much more difficult for CycloneSpin to play, and that's the player that Radiance always truly does play through. They put him on these hyper carries, they get him to rotate out. A lot of Radiance's early game wins come from that long side of the map, and then they get gold free off the back end of it. So if Renegades has a strategy to make sure that that doesn't happen to them, if they could just slow down that duo lane, who's to say where it's going to go in the mid to late?
Well, we've already had a little chat so far with Ro, the coach of Renegades. Let's check in with Biggie, the other Australian in the league, and see how he's getting on for Radiance.
All right, guys, down here with Biggie, head coach of Radiance. We'll be talking to him about their matchup up against the Renegades today. Now, Biggie, I mean, it's been all 2-0 sets for you guys so far this split, with the most recent, of course, against Rival last week. Unfortunately, that one being a loss. And with that being your first loss so far, what's the messaging like to the team after you've won all your first few games and then you have a tough one against Rival?
I don't think that set wasn't, like, I think it looked bad, but I don't think we were that worried because the thing with Rival is they have a very specific way. They want to win and they want to win quick, and we don't play that way. And I think game one we definitely had a good draft. We could have won, but we just died too much early. And then game two we definitely messed up that draft, and the same thing happened again. But I even think game one we probably could have won if we didn't get picked so randomly late game.
Right. So it's always important to take some takeaways from games like that. And we also had Adapting's tweet kind of after that game said, the ego is down, but the team isn't quite humbled just yet. Do you think that's a pretty accurate standpoint for where the team mentality is at the moment?
Yeah, I think it was good for us to, like, you never want to lose, but I think for us we hadn't lost yet, and even though I don't, like, we were 4-0, I don't think we were playing that well or we were playing amazingly or like to our full potential. So I think a loss is kind of good because it made us think about, we have to keep, even though we're winning, we have to keep figuring out how we actually want to play, because I still don't think we're quite where we want to be, or like even just as a team yet on the same page, like how we want to play and where we want to play to and how we want to draft. So.
Well, figuring that stuff out from a top of the standings position is certainly easier than being elsewhere. And I'm curious now, looking at the Renegades, big game versus them today. Lasbra on their team has been pretty pivotal, and especially in a meta here in the SPO where junglers have kind of dominated some of the top kill spots in the league. Do you think Lasbra versus Adapting will be a matchup to watch here today?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think Lasbra still wants to prove himself a lot. But I think a lot of it will probably come down to the duo lane. In our matchup with Jake versus Aror, and then BaRRa versus Cyclone.
Is there anything in that duo lane specifically that maybe you identify going into the Renegades? Any tendencies maybe that you expect out of them?
Obviously, Jake's pretty unpredictable in what he wants to pick and how he plays, but mainly his picks. I think maybe BaRRaCCuDDa is a little bit more predictable, but we just I think we have like a specific way we want to draft and play, and I think if we play as like up to our standard, then it should be simple, an easy to win for us.
It's all about playing your game. Biggie, it's always a pleasure. I appreciate you talking with me a little bit this morning, and best of luck.
All right, cheers.
That was a little chat with Biggie from Radiance. First thing, glad to see the washing up had been done in the kitchen, first of all. Secondly, not surprised to see the Aussie is the closest dude to the fridge for the beer. Makes so much sense to me. Talking a little bit more, though, about exactly what Biggie said there, Myth. It's good for them to have, it's kind of humbling to have that loss last week is kind of where he was at. Good chance to reflect of how they want to play and how they want to draft. Is that what you think is the biggest takeaways that they should have really been looking for going into this one?
You got to learn from every single loss. Biggie kind of echoed a sentiment that we heard from Cherio beforehand. They come into the league expecting to be the big bad. They finally get a little bit of a knock on the chin, and now they can refocus and try and figure out what they need to change. They learned that they really can't rest on their laurels either. Now they know that they have to continually improve as well. But my takeaway from that interview was, did Biggie look pressed to you even in the slightest? He seemed pretty chill. Maybe they didn't strategize nearly as much as Rose worried about.
I will be honest, Australians definitely do have a chill tendency to them for the most part, so maybe some of that is Biggie's demeanor as well. I think the biggest thing was what they were saying was they felt that was a rival tough set anyway. They felt they made mistakes in the game. Hopefully, as we had to pick some bands here, they can change it up now, ready for this matchup against the Renegades. I was looking at exactly how this matchup's going to get played out here. I think the one thing Biggie mentioned was Jake's picks. You can't really ban the kid out to an extent, right? So what do? Do you just give him the world, or do you think you should limit one or two of the options that we've seen him go for before?
I would imagine we see the standard meta bans, get rid of the Horus. From there, you have no idea what Jake's going to do, so just get rid of the one that you're truly concerned about, then shift your focus over towards CycloneSpin, make sure he doesn't find himself in one of his more comfortable characters. Ull's been seeing a lot of focus and priority in the SPL, mainly because you can flex that pick. It is a mid or ADC pick, so taking it early on doesn't show your hand at all, and Ull fits into just about every single draft. I like that he points out that he's really concerned only about that duo lane. We saw that Dave tried to get him to talk about the jungle a little bit. Biggie, non-plus, said, well, you know, if CycloneSpin does well, he's going to be fine. So we'll see what they do with that.
You did mention the Ull a little bit there. I'm not sure I want to see Renegades necessarily look at that because, well, Radiance and Adapted have been playing a lot of Awelix as of late, and I don't really think Awelix will, you know, have a hard time dealing with an Ull. As we look at the bans, though, Renegades are actually going to ban away that Ull in that third slot, along with Hercules, away from Aror, and that Yemoja that does get flexed in the solo. When I say flexed, it's not as mainstay as it was last year. And Tyr in Camazots and alongside Horus in response. How do you feel about the ban so far, Myth?
It makes perfect sense to me. It's banning out that Tyr. That's a god that Jake plays. It's a god that SOT plays. Get rid of it. You don't have to worry about too much. Everything else looks about bog standard to me. Barring that Hercules ban, that's hints of respect towards Aror. And I think it's well-deserved. Aror has the best Hercules in the world.
I think it's one of those things that people definitely sleep on again, and every time he pulls it out, everyone goes, oh yeah, that's why we don't let him get it. Amaterasu, though, the first pick for Renegades, pretty flexible for the most part, I would say, because it can go to solo lane for SoloOrTroll, but it could be piloted by Jake as well in that support option.
I'm glad you pointed that out. I would have been completely confident saying, I'm a first pick, it's going solo every single day of the week, but Renegades does have the 408 factor, so that is a bit of a flex pick, but Radiance in response get Yemoja and Hu Yi. If we assume those are both going to the long lane, which I think is a completely fair assumption, that's a lot of pressure, a lot of kill potential over there. Any stun's going to be followed up by more stuns, more damage coming out. We're going to see how Renegades gets a little bit more passive in their lane. Maybe we see a Jing pick up to just mitigate some of that.
It's definitely weird to see Aror playing a bit more of a defensive utility support rather than the full balls to the wall aggression that we normally see from him. I think the difference here is the early game is still going to be very potent in terms of wave clear and poke potential, but as it goes on, he's going to be filling that back roll a little bit more. The Thanatos pickup, though, we've seen a lot more Thanatos as of late. What's the reason for the Thanatos coming back so much?
Well, I think Sam for Soccer really showed exactly what Thanatos is going to do, which is first blood, second blood, third blood, whatever blood you want, Thanatos can get it for you. It's global presence. It's an execute in the late game to shut down. Yeah, all of it. Scent of death, whatever you want, Thanatos has it. It's lockdown. It's early game kill potential. It's late game shutting down the tanks. It's going to make it very hard for anyone to really frontline the second they drop below that 40 to 30% threshold. Hovering death's going to be in the wings. I like Thanatos a lot.
Well, Raijin now picked up for Renegades to go with that Thanatos too. And with that Raijin, I mean, he's one of the top picks in that mid lane so far. And the most predominant ones we've really seen has been Raijin, Merlin, and of course, Agni is the final one that's starting to creep up there ever so slightly. I wonder where we're going to see in terms of the bans from Renegades though, because Radiance haven't drafted a mid laner here. There's a chance for them to like take away some of that god pull from BigManTingz. Would that be an option you may consider?
I mean, you've already taken away a lot of BigManTingz' god pool in just picking the Raijin, so it's a bit of a black asterisk where BigManTingz is going to go forward. Banning out that Merlin makes perfect sense to me, but if he leaves Agni up, I think we can just assume that's where it's going to go. I like the Thor pickup by Radiance to match that global pressure from the Thanatos, however.
That's true. Yeah, it's definitely a matchup in the jungle that's tales old as time, right? Whichever one ults first, the other one definitely has a bit more of a window. Is there an edge in that jungle matchup from your point of view? Like, does it go one way more often than the other for Thor versus Thanatos?
Thanatos has a lot more engagement potential onto Thor. If they skirmish inside the jungle in a 1v1, Thanatos should win the fight every single day of the week. His burst potential is a lot more confirmable. He can silence out the Berserker's barrage. But it's whoever gets that early game lead first. If Thor pulls ahead, he can continually just leverage his lead, continue putting out pressure in the lanes with the ganks. If Thanatos pulls ahead, we know exactly what's going to happen there. Already an early game god, going to continually just frag out. He does scale a little bit better into the late game, Thanatos that is, than Thor, especially considering some recent nerfs to Thor, reducing the scaling, reducing some of that base power. We'll have to see where it goes.
Well, Discordia Merlin banned away, so really trying to shut down some of BigManTingz' options here. The Agni you mentioned is still available. It's not going to be the greatest matchup in the early game against a Raijin, however, or a Thanatos for that matter. But as the game goes on, those AoE nukes can be impactful. I am interested by Radiance's bans there, though. Jubelonke and Chernobog. Really looks like they're looking to try and make a matchup where Cyclone could potentially take fights in this duo lane, looking to be aggressive in the early game a little bit more. And it's funny because, you know, Jing is one of BaRRaCCuDDa's pocket go-to picks, and they're not scared of him getting that here.
Not only Jing, but also Hachiman. They left the two safest hunters available. If you're looking to facilitate Cyclone just fragging out in the lane, it is interesting to point out that he does ban away the X-Ball and the Chernobog. Both gods have global presence. Both gods can frag out and absolutely just rotate whenever they want. But if you want to fight, why not give Renegades a god that is going to be incentivized to fight? X-Ball wants to stack up his passive. Chernobog wants to force you out so he can ult to other lanes. Leaving up Jing and Hachiman kind of goes opposed to that strategy. They're going to just play safe and farm.
Well, like Season 5, obviously King Arthur's still in the meta, but not picks as valuable as he used to be in the Pro League. But the good news is that, well, in this sort of situation, you don't know if that Amit is in the solo lane. So having some sort of neutral god there that could do pretty well against almost anything, it's pretty safe to go with King Arthur. And now with that Odin locked in for Renegades as well, Myth, I mean, I'm looking at it and I'm kind of saying, well, that is still flexible, right? That could be Odin solo against King Arthur or Amaterasu solo against King Arthur. Which would you prefer to see?
I would definitely prefer to see the Odin over in the soul lane. You know he's going to be able to lock down King Arthur and make it harder for him to escape the cage. Thanatos already going to have very good kill potential over there as well, so it just facilitates that gank a little bit more. But you couldn't pay me to predict what 408 is going to play. It could very easily be Odin support and Amaterasu solo. Amaterasu into King Arthur, a little bit less kill potential. You do still have the ultimate to lock him down, but King Arthur can easily just ult away from that, uses dashes, plays safe. I think it really should be Odin over in that soul lane.
Look at you calling the Hachiman earlier as well. I'm so proud of you, Myth. You've come so far from winning a console world championship to now cast him. And there's the Agni you mentioned too. Oh my god, I could just go away. You're doing all the work for me. Tell me a little bit about why we think we've seen a bit of a rise of Agni, if it is going to be an Agni locked in, funny enough.
Agni is a god that has a very good matchup into some of the more top-tier mid laners. If Raijin goes into his ultimate, immediately you have 3 Rainfire on a very large, immobile target. He's also got some of the best ways to apply Divine Ruin in this more healer-centric meta. Having 3 ultimates from a long range means that you can just apply it from as far away and you have to worry about your cooldowns. And it applies for longer. If you get that passive stacked up, that dot's going to keep the Divine Ruin ticking away for as long as you want.
Little bit concerned about the early game though, because Agni's wave clear at that level 1 point is a little bit susceptible to Raijin poke and of course a Thanatos if it's going to be in the jungle with that Thanatos, which is what we expect here. Just going to have to watch that early game very carefully for Big Man, but at the same time Big Man's options in that position have been pretty solid so far. Let's get into it though. It's Renegades up against Radiance, and it's John Finch and Ryan Bailey standing by.
Thanks, Hindu and Mipple, and it is indeed Finch and Aggro here as we move into game number 1. Things looking nice up top and looking nice in the game as well here, Aggro. One area where things might not look quite as nice is Aror is on this Yemoja flashback to that unfortunate first blood he fell where they body blocked him against the wall right near here. But already there's some aggression from Renegade. CycloneSpin has the beads forced out early.
And this grouping is a little bit odd from Renegades because SoloOrTroll is even over here. This is something that happened at Season 5 Worlds, I believe, the one where Splice won, where Divios would rotate over and guarantee you this pressure over here in the duo lane. But it's not just SoloOrTroll, it's Lasbra guaranteeing that Renegade's purple goes down. And Venenu looks like he's, soloed the speed buff by himself, but he picked it up. So now BigManTingz is going to know that Ven started on that speed, and it kind of throws a lot of the benefit of, well, we don't know where anybody started. It kind of goes out the window with Ven picking up the speed and Lasbra picking up the red, because now Radiance knows exactly where all the timers are and where everyone was.
Well, sure, they lose the timer part, but they get exactly this. CycloneSpin in trouble, and without the beads early on, first blood for Renegades, and Awesome Jake makes it out. Yeah, you think Ro came in with a game plan? Well, it's looking good here so far.
And this is exactly what Ro was talking about in his interview, which was if we just can emulate what Rival did, we're going to have a great opportunity. And what did Rival do? They put pressure on duo lane early. And that was really through PBM and PandaCat just in the 2v2, picking gods that are better at fighting. It was a lot of Hercules. But in this situation, you pick this same Thanatos that Sanford Soccer has been picking quite a bit of, and you just lean heavily on this duo lane. You make sure they don't get purple buff XP so that they don't hit level 2 in time, and now you keep the pressure on.
And they're continuing to get aggressive. Still level 1 for CycloneSpin, who's really had a rough start to this game. And I was wondering if this might be what was a bit opened up by that loss for Radiance that we saw last week. It was their first one, and what it showed was how critical Aror getting off to good starts is really for the entire map of Radiance. And this is beyond the pale, right? I mean, they have entirely committed all their resources to stopping this early long lane farm. But still, I think that there is a nugget of truth here, which is that Aror, a lot of the times, is that linchpin for this roster, and Lasbra is back for more. CycloneSpin still has the dive bomb, is back underneath the tier 1, but that's a great stun from Aror, prevents the scythe, and should mean they're okay.
Just surprised that Jake doesn't switch targets there. If he just stuns Aror instead of CycloneSpin, Aror doesn't have his Riptide ready, I don't think, and even if he does, you can silence him out with Lasbra coming over. I feel like the kill potential there was more onto Aror than onto CycloneSpin now that Cyclone has dive bomb available, but you're still putting a lot of pressure over here. But the problem is now the Lasbra has come over and shared about half of 2 waves back to back, not necessarily back to back, but both times he's been there, and so they are losing XP. Renegades, they need to make sure they're getting things like this, red buff invades, which are perfect.
But Lasbra in some trouble. Great stun from Aror, adapting with the beads to make sure you can get the spin off, and that was what Radiance needed, just what the doctor would have ordered. You're exactly right. Renegades gave up pressure everywhere else for pressure in the long lane, and then they came over to try and expand that pressure, extend it out a little bit further with the red buff invade, but right there to stuff it, we're adapting in Aror.
And that, I don't know if that's bad communication coming from BaRRaCCuDDa, and he should be letting Lasbra know that Aror is coming from the left-hand side. And so Lasbra is pretty free to just path to the right and force adapting to hit everything, and then maybe they can get the kill. But if you walk directly into Aror, you're kind of giving that one up. It feels like a weird pathing decision there by Lasbra. And you're already seeing the effects of that pressure. Yes, it's good for Renegades, but adapting has been ahead in farm. He's already got his Talaria boots up, and that's really even without that kill. I think he would have had it at that point. I mean, Benji's been able to really pressure SoloOrTroll over here on the right-hand side. Solo hasn't lost a blue buff yet, but likely will at some point sooner rather than later, now that Benji has that Glad Shield.
And adapting wants to ult. BaRRaCCuDDa still has his own ult, so as long as he's ready, he should be able to get it off in time, but didn't quite aware, so that means the beads had to come out. BaRRaCCuDDa still has the horse to reposition now and is able to get away from adapting, so it gets the beads from BaRRa, but BaRRa does stay up.
And that's huge that BaRRa doesn't die there, because that would have put CycloneSpin right back into a power position in this game. BaRRa's able to back, still buy his full boots. Not so bad, and I like his ability to stand and fight. If you just hop on the horse right away, adapting's going to hammer you. He's going to still have that lightning damage from Anvil of Dawn. That's going to do some extra damage. And it's pretty hard for you to turn laterally on the horse, so it's pretty easy for adapting to freehand that double tap and then just spin on you and probably kill him from that position. BaRRa's decision to stand and hold his ground for a little bit, I think, was very smart.
Works out for him. Now can they get aggressive? The Suns from CycloneSpin make it hard for BaRRa to be a part of the fight right off the bat, so Awesome Jake takes a good deal of poke. And that means the pressure back in favor of Radiance, so the bat can be found now for them on the left-hand side. So it's as you said, they got pressure in left, but now Benji can do this, start to look for the blue buff invade. But of course, Lasbra was there and ready. Make sure they're able to find the defense, and Benji can't quite get the pressure he was looking for.
Very smart by Lasbra. This is what I think is a good sign for Renegades. They're coming in with a clear game plan. They execute, but not as well as they would have liked. So, but they still get the first blood. They still get a couple red buff. They get a red buff invade. They get some purple buff invades going, but they don't stay stubborn on that fact. They don't feel like they have to completely force it, even if it might not work anymore. And Lasbra is still thinking critically about what is Radiance going to do. It's not just them thinking about what they are going to do, but also how Radiance are going to react. And when you're able to do both of those things, it's very, very difficult to come in with your own game plan.
Well, this is a willing decision by Radiance. They saw Awesome Jake on that award. They knew that he was going to be stepping up. That's because they had adapting, but also Renegades had Lasbra. With that extra presence nearby from the jungler's aggro, not much more aggression comes from this. But you're right, I think, to talk about how important this is for Renegades going forward. Remember what Rose said. He said, and I think you never expect to lose, but that they respond to losing in a really good way. They knew they would have a bit of a slow start here to this season. I think Renegades have a higher potential than some teams are giving them credit for. One of the most competitive points we've seen in the SPL, and I think Renegades are a part of that.
I mean, yeah, they're the 7th place team right now, and they don't feel like it. I mean, historically, when you're talking about the bottom 2 SPL teams, Obey has struggled mightily. And so they kind of fit that same bill as we often have in the SPL. Usually the bottom 2 are very far apart from the top end. Right now, Renegades, I think it's fair to say, is 7th place. But they don't feel like they are so far behind that they can't win any games. And that's really a big difference maker for this team. That's why I think today's games are really interesting, because you've got number 7 versus number 2 in a lot of people's power rankings, or number 3 at worst for Radiance. And then later on, we're going to have number 8 versus number 1 or number 2, depending on where you have rival. And this is a day to really see exactly how big the gap is in the SPL right now. And I think sometimes days like this are just as important as 1 versus 2 or 7 versus 8. I think it's going to be fun to watch.
Awesome Jake has dropped the cage, but he's still being hit by that River's Rebuke. So Adapting takes to the sky, but he's considering Lasbra and the reinforcements rather than actual tower die, perhaps an entire misread by me. Adapting's on the way out. Not much more potential there for any aggression, so instead he just disengages. And here's the thing, Aggro, about these matchups, right? It's that it's important no matter what ends up happening, right? I think it's important even if maybe things go the way that we expect in Radiance and in the second matches to stomp there too, just because then we are like, okay, our top team is where we thought they were. In both directions, I think we're able to glean some pretty useful information regardless of the outcome.
Absolutely, and even if it's just a close win for the team we expect to win, that means that the other team is maybe closer than we thought, or maybe the team that we thought was really good still has some struggles ending games or responding to pressure on the left side of the map. You know, there's a lot of things that you can learn even when the matchups seem a little bit lopsided, but so far it really hasn't been lopsided at all. Renegades has come in with the clear game plan. Radiance, I think, has responded nicely to that. Adapting's been in the perfect positions to defend his buffs. He hasn't been gun-shy on being aggressive when he needs to be. In that kill on the Lasbra really put the brakes onto what Renegades wanted to do.
Well, I want to ask you a little bit about this Brawler's beat stick here for Adapting, and just the question of what anti-heal spot sort of is in the game just in general. There's no one on this Renegades roster who consider a traditional healer, right? But tons of healing for Lasbra in terms of self-sustain, same for SoloOrTroll. Do you like it here in this spot just to deal with the sustain as well? As action kicks off, you might have to talk about it later, Aggro, as Benji takes one up to the sky. It's SOT he has in his clutches. Awesome Drake drops the Horrific, but they want this fight to keep continuing back towards the mid lane jungle, up in the air, hovering around, waiting for his moment is Lasbra, and he's picked his target. It's Aror, but instead it's Lasbra that falls. Tings gets the kill. Benji continuing to pressure on Awesome Jake, so it's a 2-for-1 as Radiance come out on top, and they want more. SOT is really low way over to the side. Adapting makes it 3 for Radiance.
That idea to go on Benji at this point in the game is just not a wise one by Renegades. I mean, all you are by grouping up around King Arthur at this point are extra Glad Shield procs for him. It doesn't matter how many people you're tossing on top of him if you don't have any anti-heal at this point in the game. So they try and anti-heal him with the cage, but he has Excalibur's Wrath all charged up. So Benji spends the entire cage duration, taking the scenic view, just kind of breathing it all in from the sky as he's chopping up SoloOrTroll, and that buys plenty of time for Radiance to rotate over. And Venenu puts out good damage. He's trying to put Benji in execute range with those Taiko drums so that Lasbra can kill him, but Aror is able to keep him up and healthy with enough healing. And you're asking about the anti-heal for Adapting, which I do think is wise because of all the self-sustain that you mentioned, the Bancrofts and lifesteal boots for Venenu. But I think Renegades are desperately lacking anti-heal at this point in the game. If you're going to have any chance at killing a King Arthur at this point, you need Brawler's Beat Stick for Lasbra, and it's not like that's the only guy you're worried about healing. You have to build anti-heal for the Yemoja at the same time. So if we're not building anti-heal right now, sure, but we're going to need to take our fights accordingly. Let's fight around mid. Let's fight around left. No reason to take a fight around King Arthur at this point if you don't have that anti-heal.
And that's the dynamic you set up at the top, right? It was, is all this pressure in duo going to make it for the fights on the right-hand side? So now not only has it clearly not, right? Benji and Adapting 1-0, 2-0, even though Aror and CycloneSpin are 0-1, clearly it hasn't worked on the right-hand side, but it looks as though they might not even have invested enough into making their pressure on the left-hand side work when you consider perhaps a bit of a lack of anti-heal when you're trying to take down a Yemoja, too. So there are maybe still a couple of question marks here for Renegades as Benji continues the aggression. Not a full-on dive, but trying to bully SOT out.
And Adapting's here, blink in from Benji. This should be a kill onto SOT. Dazzling Offensive's going to help him out, but I think this might just be delaying the inevitable.
Maybe, but it looks like they're backing off. Adapting, starting to retreat. Lasbra now rotating over to the right-hand side here as well. So the Rivers of Buke does end up catching him. It ends up being great placement, but I don't know if that's exactly what Aror wanted. It does bring Lasbra back and force out the ultimate, but now he's stuck in a bad part of town. The aggressive Thunder Crash in doesn't get followed up by Lasbra, so it's the Taiko drums from Venenu that ends up sealing the deal.
Man, good damage from BigManTingz over the wall, though. Keeps Venenu from trying to keep that chase going onto Benji. Just a little bit of a sloppy dive. I thought that was a guaranteed kill, and frankly, it should have been for Adapting and Benji on that right side because SOT was out of mana. Exactly. I mean, if he's out of mana, yes, he's got just enough to cast Dazzling Offensive. Let's just spread out a little bit and just wait until he's done casting his CC Immune Ultimate, and then we can keep it going, but it just felt like they were chomping at the bit a little bit too much. Maybe their timer that they knew Lasbra was coming was going off in their heads.
And then it also makes you wonder about Aror locking down Lasbra. I mean, the ultimate placement was excellent, and he had a bunch of damage on him, forced the ultimate. But I don't know that Auror's ever soloing Lasbra, and Adapting was clearly on the game plan of leave, right? That's what I mean by it just seemed a bit indecisive. You're right, the gank itself seemed indecisive. I wasn't sure about where Aror was as well, too. I like what Radiance have done to respond early, but I'm just wondering if maybe there is a little bit of this fracturing happening.
A little bit. I mean, Aror nearly soloed him. He was really close, but he used everything in the kit to get to that point. And he was still 152 damage off of killing Lasbra outright. And if Adapting's backing up, as you're saying, I don't think you have a whole lot of kill potential in that area. And I'm concerned now, Finch, as we look at the first few items, next items being built by Renegades as they're getting into their third item slots. Anti-heal's not coming anytime soon. They're going to have to wait until fourth item start getting anti-heal. They must be feeling like that Odin cage is enough anti-heal against this Yemoja and King Arthur. I think Renegades and I are agreeing to disagree on that because I don't know how you kill this Yemoja or anyone that she's pocket healing without any sort of anti-heal.
Still, it'd be hard not to impress with this start for both teams. Clearly, Renegades came in with a game plan, and they executed that cleanly to start them off here on the long lane side. And then obviously, I'm impressed with the way that Radiance have responded to it by playing a bit more through Benji and Adapting in that right side of the map that they have the advantage on. Benji proxying farming in right, but Radiance showing some presence at least near this Gold Fury. They'll grab the Oracles, pull some of Renegades over, but they're not ready to pull it just yet as Benji continues to roam the map. If there is aggression in mid, he could be here for it.
But I don't know who's going to be able to take him down. In fact, Benji not wasting any time, setting up Lasbra. Easy wall there from Adapting. And Benji and Adapting take care of Lasbra easily. And this is the thing about Benji, is that you can't just go, all right, we'll just go duo all the time and slowly burn them out. Rival did it by quickly burning Radiance out of the game and then transitioning into mid and the right-hand side. And I think that a lot of Radiance's strategy around what went wrong there, how can we adjust if teams try to do that to us again in the future, is number one, make sure Adapting is there to help. But number two, just let Benji get big.
Well, Adapting's pulled the trigger, and he's made his target known. He wants Awesome Jake, who does use the shield to survive. Good ultimate from Venenu as well, does buy the time needed for Awesome Jake to make it back out of there. So that is big on the side of the Renegades to at least be able to deter some of this aggression from Radiance.
But still, I mean, Jake loses his whole health bar, Venenu has to beads, and alt Adapting with a really, really strong double dunk. And I think that you could tell that Kenneth's hitting his stride in this game. He's starting to really feel it and be a little bit more aggressive. And when Adapting's starting to get a little bit more aggressive, I think he's still one of the hardest players to play against in the entire league. And that's why Rival strategy against Radiance was so smart in my mind. It was to just take all of the aggressive nature out of Radiance, to suck the air out of their sails, and just make them respond to everything that Rival was doing. And Radiance really did a good job this game of being in a position where that could happen to them again. They defend a red, they get the kill. Renegades probably let off the gas a little bit too much, and they give Radiance a little bit too much room to breathe. And Benji has just broken the game wide open for Radiance, and Adapting's followed suit perfectly.
Lasbra aggressive, CycloneSpin, silence, dive bomb comes out, so he runs down and away from the aggression, but he's certainly dead to rights here. There's just too many members on the left-hand side. He uses everything that he's got. All the tools except for beads come out from CycloneSpin, and he still is unable to survive, but it does buy a ton of time. Aror now here on left, and Benji gets to continue pressuring SOT all alone in solo, but CycloneSpin does drop.
I'm just a little bit surprised if this was going to be the strategy for Renegades. If we're going to just run it down left-hand side of the map, and Solo, you're going to be on the island all by yourself. I'm just surprised they first picked the Ama. Exactly. Yeah. And it's not like they settled for it. They first picked it. Maybe they were planning on playing Ama support, and then they just felt like the Odin pick for Jake was too good to pass up, and that's why they went for it. But it just feels like there's a disconnect between the draft, at least one part of the draft for Renegades, and the way they ended up playing the game.
Right, because if he is on anything that can scrap with Benji even a little bit better, even potentially the Odin, right? I mean, then this solo lane could be going a little bit better for him. But I agree. I think that Odin support makes a lot of sense, and maybe that was a bit of an audible that Renegades end up calling kind of halfway through their draft. But clearly, some areas where it just feels a bit odd that SOT was left alone by design and with a tool that's just not going to be ready to work if you leave it over there alone, which again was the design. But with the Fury down for now, only Pyromancer's up in terms of neutral objectives. This might be the time that Renegades need to kind of move around the map and try and find some farm for a bit and then be ready for that next big fight.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Renegades wants to take these engagements around the Furies, because who are you trying to cage if you're Awesome Jake? I imagine Benji has got to be the primary guy you got to try and lock down. You have to wait until he uses his ultimate. And then, if he's using that ultimate, do you really have the time to back up or even surge forward to protect whoever he's ulting, and then step up and find the cage onto him after the fact? And will you have enough damage in the tank after all that is done? That King Arthur ultimate just buys so much time for Radiance to set up their team fight. And there's still no anti-heal for Renegades. So, really, Radiance should be stoked to group up as 5, because they feel like they should feel like this Yemoja healing is going to be unanswerable, because it feels like it will be.
Well, Aror now has the Phantom as well, so if the cage is kind of their only plan on trying to stop that anti-heal, it's going to be a lot less effective, right? You just kind of walk right out of that. So Radiance are feeling really, really good in these fights now. They try and start some action in mid for the tier 1, but they get pushed back out. Benji's on zone duty, and BaRRa's got to be careful. He could certainly get collapsed on here. Dash allows him to escape, but Benji keeps up the pressure. In comes the support, and BaRRa feels like he has to use the ult. He ends up getting net forced out. Now Awesome Jake is the target.
That's huge for BaRRa to lose that mounted archery as well, because that's a massive safety tool for him in these team fights. And Venenu is just not going to do any damage to Benji at this point in the build. I mean, he's got a lot of sustain from the Typhons and the Bancrofts, but there's plenty of anti-heal on the other side between this Divine Ruin and the Brawler's Beatstick. He just doesn't do a whole lot of damage at this point with this build. It'll do okay damage to squishies, but to tanks, he only has that 10% penetration and no flat pen whatsoever to even help you against tanks and against those squishies. I know Hurwind was going with the no flat pen build last week, I believe it was, or 2 weeks ago. I just can't imagine a world where no flat pen is the call, man. It's just too good of a stat.
Awesome Jake's in trouble early on. The CC chain too strong, and it's Radiance that come out on top. But it's right back to the Primal Fury down below half. Meanwhile, Benji is a man on a mission, keeping everybody zoned out. Primal Fury secured by Radiance, and Benji forces 3 members to retreat. Now with all this space on the map, Radiance can go just about wherever they want to.
And it could be Fire Giant at this point. Okay, maybe not Fire Giant, but they could. They've got the sustain in order to do it, and Renegades just don't have any answer for it at this point. They don't have anybody who's capable of killing Benji at this point in the
No.
game. No one is able to do it. I mean,
I don't know
BaRRa's
if they
gonna
have 2 people.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe BaRRa and Ven together have enough damage to kill him, and then Lasbra could execute him. That's kind of what you're looking for at this point. But Benji is just absolutely huge. And I was talking about this. I was streaming on SMITE before SPO went live today.
That's true.
And someone asked me about Benji, and it is crazy to me how everyone thinks Benji's good, right? No one's like, oh man, Benji, guy's a total scrub. But when you talk about the best solo lane players of all time, it's a crime that Benji's name doesn't get answered or brought up. I think that he probably is the de facto answer in my mind if you want to talk about who's probably the favorite to be the best solo laner of all time. Yes, Dimmy had the best season of any solo laner will ever have in Season 2. But outside of Season 2, Dimmy wasn't exactly the all-star for that energy roster a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Benji has been consistent every single game of his career. It's felt like he's been a driving force on every team he's ever been on. He's a world champion. He's been to world finals twice. I don't know why people don't give this guy enough respect, man. I don't know if it's because he's not a super forward-facing guy. You know, he's not a big talker. He doesn't put out content or anything like that. Maybe that's part of it. But if you don't have respect for Benji, then you just haven't been watching.
It's a crowded field too, right? I mean, Variety, Deathwalker, Baskin all played there at incredibly high levels. Fine, okay. Could maybe be made the argument as the best that's currently doing it, but in terms of total lifetime, Benji 100% deserves to be considered strongly for that title, as Radiance now grouping up around the FG. Relics available for just about everyone, but Radiance the one with the 6,000 gold lead in the back pocket, and another one starting up the FG. It's mostly CycloneSpin on it right now. He's got Tingz there with him. Everyone else has to walk through that barricade that is the rest of Radiance as the Fire Giant slowly brought down to half. Benji has now picked up a target. It's awesome, Jake. SOT drops the cage, so several are stuck in it, but Lasbra and the squad want to go beyond. Radiance secure the FG. There's the stun and the dunk, but CycloneSpin lives through it all. They get the turnaround, and Lasbra falls right away. Awesome Jake in trouble as well. Still somehow clinging to life as Venenu gets a kill, but it's a double for CycloneSpin. Awesome Jake goes down too, and Radiance not done aggressing just yet, continuing to push into the tier 2. Not much more there for them, though, so they'll take the FG and their 2 kills.
Man, you're saying Lasbra's trying to go beyond, but I'm not seeing any plus ultra play out of Renegades right now, because Radiance is just able to create such space with Benji and Aror in that front line. Those walls from Aror cut off the entire advance from Renegades. And even though it looks like Cyclone should have died, I mean, he and BigManTingz are tanking fire forever. They're both low. Lasbra's right on top of them. This healing coming from Aror and the shielding is just too much to handle when you don't have any anti-heal on the side of Renegades. And it takes Renegades a full 40 seconds to kill Benji. They finally get him, but he did his job right there. He kept every damage dealer away from his damage dealers for the vast majority of that team fight.
You're right. I mean, how often do you see carries get to just solo down the Fire Giant, take all of that damage on themselves, and then both get to leave the fight on the backside of one of them with a double kill? That's all space created by Benji. That's what we're talking about when we talk about pressure and space created. I feel like sometimes those terms might seem a bit vague, but truly, BaRRaCCuDDa and Venenu never got to even see CycloneSpin and Tingz. Lasbra got back there, but he had to commit everything he had to get there, and they still all had their defensive relics, and they were able to answer back to him quite nicely. So that means now Radiance have Fire Giant on everyone but Benji, and there's still plenty of tier 2 towers to go grab aggro. They'll start with the one in left as adapting ults over towards Lasbra and forces him to fall back, and now can threaten 4 members strong on the tier 2 in mid, the tier 2 in right, and just strip away the jungle from Renegades.
There's a lot of gold still on the map here for Radiance in the form of these 2 tier 2 towers, and Gold Fury's coming up as well in 15 seconds. Without adapting there, without relics for either him or CycloneSpin, deciding to play this siege slow, I think, is a very intelligent call to make sure that you aren't losing this massive lead that you have at this point. Radiance can really choke this game out pretty effectively from this position. I do think that there is some argument to be made that you want to continue to put pressure on Renegades while they don't have any anti-heal still, but it doesn't look like they're building it, so you don't have to rush that.
There's no urgency.
Go get these towers. Yeah, exactly. If they aren't building at this point, they aren't building it. So you're pretty safe to play this one slow.
I would say so too, and I wonder about about BigManTingz kind of in all of this. I think he gets lost a bit as a role player on this star-studded squad, but we've seen teams starting to focus him a bit more in the bans, right? Trying to take the, not the Agnis, but the Raijins away from him, trying to limit him down because his god pool seemed narrow initially. But I think that's just because he wasn't getting any focus. When he's forced off that pick and plays things like the Discordia, plays things like this Agni, I think Ting still looks really strong.
Yeah, I think that Radiance top threes or top twos, Ting's got a lot. But I think it's just because Merlin and Raijin are so ubiquitous in terms of team compositions that they can fit into. It's just such a safe first 2 picks. Like, you're never like, man, if we didn't top 2 Raijin there, we wouldn't have given up this and this. You feel good about getting those gods. They don't tip your hand as far as what you want to do with your draft. They don't have any hard counters, so you're not feeling like you're exposing yourself by picking those gods early. It's the way that they kind of tread water for a little bit in the draft, and then capitalize on what you are doing. That's what Radiance likes to do in these picks and bans. They get Cyclone's pick early, they get Ting's pick early, and then they figure out what you're doing and they pick accordingly. I don't think that's because Ting's doesn't have a wide god pool. I mean, he has played a bunch of different gods in the mid lane, and to only go to your 4th option, I mean, with Raijin picked, and then Merlin Discordia banned in the 2nd phase, you're still feeling really, really comfortable on your 4th option. You have to get down to like the 6th, the 7th god in your god pool to really start to feel any level of discomfort. At least that's the way it should be for an SPL player.
Ting's putting that on display. Hard to shine when there's this much light around him, but I think Ting's has done plenty to earn some praise here this year. Really, the entirety of Radiance looks strong every time that we see them. And Renegades came in with a game plan to try and shut down that strong team, but either they didn't quite stick to it enough or it just didn't work. Big ricochet onto Awesome Jake. He's taking a ton of poke. That might turn from poke into an outright kill, but Awesome Jake barely makes his way out of there. Now the Fire Giant's here, and Radiance feel very comfortable grabbing it. SOT wants a little bit of his own poke, I suppose, here this time. He's getting plenty of it as Radiance continue to burn the objective in the back while being too strong of a front line up front. SOT has to use the ultimate just to get away from Auror's great work with the Riptide and River's Rebuke combination, so FG number 2 goes to Radiance.
Bro, look at the player damage charts. I just looked for the first
That's
time.
Gross.
What is that? I mean, what are you supposed to do as a backliner against Benji at this point? Now,
King Arthur is dead, Omega lol. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, always. I mean, look, now Venenu is going to start doing damage to him. His poke is starting to be relevant. Benji does not have a whole lot of HP in this build. I think that you can leverage on that. You've got 30% pen now for Venenu. This build takes a long time to get going, but at this point it feels pretty good, I would say. But is it too late? Is it just too late for that to matter?
Benji at this point just walking at people. Look at the damage SOT took just by trying to be at the front of the tower line. So they're down a man for a little bit as a big wave is here for Radiance to try and push with tons of archers there. They get a bunch of long-range stuns onto Awesome Jake. He barely gets the leap off, so Benji springs into action. They force defensive use of the cage. That's about their only anti-heal. So what about the fight way in the back? Lasbra does get Tings, but Tings gets the damage off, and Lasbra dies for it in trade. Now Benji can find the 2-man stun, force the beads out from Venenu, and it's Adapting's time to shine. Takes to the sky with the ultimate and dunks right down. Gets the first kill onto Venenu, and that should open up the left side Phoenix for Radiance.
Odd decision there by Venenu to turn and start auto-attacking when he knows he doesn't have beads. I mean, he's got to know Adapting's in the sky. Pull Adapting further into your team. I mean, you're going to make him use his relics that way. I guess he uses relics anyways, but that was a bit of an odd one.
A bit of an odd one on a really strong defense for Radiance. Now on to the mid Phoenix. Benji is at half HP after returning with the teleport, but it looks like that's more than enough to get the job done. Mid Phoenix cannot be defended. It will fall as well, and Radiance still not hesitating as they step forward, do a little bit more damage, but they are ready to leave. 2 Phoenixes down on Radiance's push.
And now, I mean, Fury's coming back up. That's an Oni Fury. You're going to force Renegades to deal with 2 Oni Fire Waves in mid and in left. This is going to let you reset, buy, and this is where you got to be a little bit quick though, where if you're Radiance, I think that you should really be quick on backing, buying, no spreading out, no going to do buffs or anything like that. In fact, Big Man's making sure he gets his red buff now, which is smart. Back, buy push on that right-hand side, because you want to be in synergy with these Oni fire waves that are going to come down mid and left.
And they still have a little bit of time left in the actual Fire Giant buff itself too, so there's a lot of good reasons, I think, to try and move with some urgency here if you're Radiance, not the least of which is your 20,000 gold lead that you'd love to leverage as often as possible as well. Adapting will grab the speed buff. They're pushing up a little bit in right, but I don't know if this is quite the pace to be all the way down there and fighting that tier 1, especially now that Renegades have shown up. Clearly, they're coming out to defend outside of their base. That might slow down Radiance a bit.
I mean, this is an interesting call here by Renegades to try and group and pick
SOT is
on
alone.
the Benji. It would be huge, but that does leave SOT by himself.
And so Benji steps on the gas. Aggression in mid forces Awesome Jake to use his ultimate, and SOT can't rotate in. Benji's proven he can take the 1v3. He's comfortable there. Does lose some health for it, but keep right on pushing. Another 20 seconds on the Fire Giant, but they are going to be here with these Oni waves to threaten on the right-hand side. So even if that goes down, they're still favored.
Benji is
obviously
chilling right now. I mean, he did no Glad Shield form anymore. He sold that, picked up some extra defense in the form of the Spectral and Oni Hunter's Guard.
SoloOrTroll low on the right-hand side. River's Rebuke have cut off most of his reinforcements, so Awesome Jake has to retreat as well. Benji's still the furthest forward, but it is starting to hurt a bit now. Doesn't matter, though. He already got all the space they needed. Right side Phoenix done. What about the dunk from Adapting? That's done, too. SOT has been removed. I believe Lasbra was considering an ult. There he is, but he comes back down on the backside of the fight. Radiance, this is just cleanly using your lead to finish off a game.
I mean, they have no concerns right now, man. I mean, they can heal up, use this Yemoja sustain. Who cares if they lost fire? They're just fine.
No, they've already done most of the heavy lifting at this point, largely just kind of dotting the I's and crossing the T's here at this point, if they choose to end right here and now, where they still have the 5v4 advantage without SoloOrTroll around. BaRRaCCuDDa has had to disengage. Radiance still right outside the Titan room. They're waiting on some minions to come in before they start this off. They get a big stun from CycloneSpin. That means Awesome Jake has already fallen. Titan well below half. That'll do it. Radiance clean up game 1 here against Renegades in convincing fashion.
I mean, we said it a lot during that cast, Finch. It felt like Renegades came in with their game plan. Radiance knew that game plan, that even though it worked initially, they stop it. And then Renegades, I think, I was saying at the time, I like Lasbra going over to the right-hand side, defending blue. It felt like they were just making sure they knew exactly what Renegades was going to do, or Radiance rather was going to do. And then I expected Renegades to keep the pace going. You're not picking Thanatos and Odin to play for late game necessarily, but they never found the gas pedal again the rest of the game, whereas Benji never found the brakes.
No, he did not. He absolutely took this game over on that King Arthur solo and gave Radiance a 1-0 lead over Renegade. So that'll do it for that first game. Hindu, what do you got for us?
Well, one thing I've got for you all, first of all, is the news that, if you didn't know, 2 times a weekend, all weekend if you're in a party in SMITE. Yes, I'm selling out. Is this really a sellout now? No, because it doesn't cost you anything. Just get in game, play the game with a friend. If you don't have friends, get used to it. I don't know, add a bot. Maybe that'll help you out. I might drag Mifflin along later, 2 times a weekend. But moving on to what we just saw in that game, Mifflin joining me on the desk once more. And Mifflin, honestly, the start of that game, Agro and Finch said it the best themselves. Early game focus into the duo lane. Renegades got stifled there. They tried to open it up, didn't work out.
Lasbra did find the first blood, but he got caught out trying to second dip around level 3. Adapting's already a level up because he's not using as much time ganking. So a level 4 Thor shows up on your level 3 Thanatos who's trying to gank duo lane for the second time in 2 minutes, finds that kill, and then for the first 10 minutes of that match, Renegades continually try and find the aggression in the long lane, but Adapting's there every single time, just able to stop the aggression. It doesn't really amount to much until that 10-minute mark, where it seems like Renegades got a little bit sick of not being able to find it, move their focus over to the soul lane, and then immediately lose a fight 3-1 in favor of Radiance. And from there, it was just clean SMITE play as Radiance just kind of dismantled the map, very slowly taking objectives and building a lead, and eventually killing the Titan.
27,000 player damage on that King Arthur. We mentioned a little bit about what happened in that solo lane, and that kind of just shows you the pace of what happened over there. King Arthur pretty much unstoppable, Mifflin, and because of that, I think that's one of the questions I've got for you, is that Amaterasu pick. Sure, she's relatively safe in the laning phase. Could they have made it even safer with picking up a Guardian there instead? If the plan was to leave SoloOrTroll on that island a little bit more, could they have looked at maybe a Sobek or something like that?
Sobek would have been the ideal pickup if you are going to shift your entire focus of the game to making sure CycloneSpin doesn't have a good match, which means Lasbra won't be there to help out your solo laner at all. Picking up that Amaterasu is a little bit questionable. She's not the most unsafe pick. She can use her ultimate to avoid Thor dunks. She can use her self-sustain to sit in lane very easily. She has a dash to get out of danger if she needs to. But there are certainly safer pickups. As you pointed out, Jormungandr would have been a lot safer. Sobek would have been safer. Even Jing Shen would have had a lot more survivability. I think there was a slight disconnect. Maybe SOT wanted to get involved a little bit earlier on in the game. Maybe he thinks he doesn't get completely bopped out by Benji like we saw. But it was quiet over there from SOT, and Benji slowly just builds up a 2-3 level lead, rotates out, does nearly double, triple the next highest damage in the game. It was a fantastic performance from Benji. SOT just kind of got left high and dry.
We're already ready for picks and bans for Game 2. Let's see if Renegades can bounce back here. And as we get into the picks and bans, funny enough, we saw Crit come back out there all of a sudden from both Hunters. Is that like an option now? Like we've seen a little bit more of the penetration builds being the focus, but Crit was picked up randomly there. We've not seen it in a minute.
It might be a response to the fact that we haven't seen Spectral Armor picked up in a long time, and we did see Spectral Armor get picked up as well there, but it was a little bit late in response to the crit. The Rage and Deathbringers were already done by the time Spectral was picked up. If you want to talk about builds, I think if you want to point out anything from Game 1 in terms of builds, it was the lack of anti-heal from Renegades. They're really only trying to counter out that Yemoja healing. King Arthur had already sold his Glad Shield, but Pestilence picked up very last by SOT. No Divine Ruin out of Ven. It's a little bit of a desync, I think. It's such a good item, Divine Ruin. It has flat pen on it, it has power. It's not going to sacrifice anything in your build. You might as well pick it up if the enemy team has a healer, but instead, they didn't.
It's definitely a good play about the anti-heal. I think my only thought process there is how good were the numbers, because there wasn't a ton of kills in that game either. And sure, Divine Ruin's great for in-combat healing and reducing it, but it doesn't really stop them out of combat, just resustaining up as they wander around the map. So, yeah, anti-heal is important. We'll see how it goes, though. Jormungandr banned away by Renegades, first of all, and immediately Radiance snapped back with that tier ban. No real surprise in the tier bans, honestly, when there's SoloOrTroll and Awesome Jake that can both pilot that god.
And the Hercules ban from Renegades as well. I mean, don't let Aror have it is the exact thought process. I could see Rose screaming in the back room. Hercules on Aror, probably not what we want.
Yeah.
Ban it away. Safe pick, you know. Aror won't be able to just completely snowball the lane on his own anymore. Camazot's getting banned out by Radiance means that it's not going to be available for either team, obviously, which means Soul Lane will have a lot more of a wet noodle fight, if you would. King Arthur's still available. Osiris still available. We might see some aggression over there.
I mean, the Camazotz can always go to that jungle spec as well. We'll see. I do like the Aurora ban again on that Hercules. I know you just pointed out, but take into account, if Renegade's game plan was to focus the duo lane, then make sure that Aurora can't be there to be as aggressive or really disrupt that with that Hercules, which is something that's great at that level 1 with that driving strike. You know, the displacement as well as the stun component too. Damage ain't half bad either.
And his auto attack chain, one of the best in the game. You can't trade with the Hercules. If he's in your face, you've already lost the fight, especially at level 1. I like the Ullr ban. We know that Cyclone's incredibly comfortable on this pick. He's going to win a lot of games simply just because he doesn't miss abilities, especially considering the slight change in build pathing for Ullr. It's shifting it to more of a cooldown focus. Jotuns gets picked up. It's more of a mage Ullr pickup. So I like that. Banning out Horus, again, it's pretty similar to what we saw in Game 1.
Well, this is identical so far. Both teams have banned the same gods they did in Game 1, so both teams feel quite comfortable. I'm not surprised Radiance aren't going to change anything because it works out well for them. But Renegades going back to the same thing feels like, I guess, they see where the errors were, and it wasn't in the ban category in the first phase at all. It's somewhere else, and it looks like already they're changing things up because Game 1 they picked Amaterasu, and at the moment they're hovering over this Raijin.
Picking up Ama early is simply, you pick it because it's safe. You're not going to get completely countered if you pick Amaterasu. And the same can mostly be said about Raijin. He's just a very high meta pick. He's got a leap out of the mid lane, so you don't have to be very worried about ganks. He's got CC immunity on the ultimate. You do show your hand in not picking up a flick spec, so you know that Renegades are going to have that Raijin in the center of the map. But it's still a very safe pickup. You're not trading out too much, and this forces Radiance to take 2 picks, and then Renegades can respond accordingly.
Well, I mean, last game it was Yemoja and Ho Yi picked up, so why would you not change it if it worked that time round, right? We'll see if they go that route. There's the Yemoja, first of all. No real surprises. I think with how Yemoja's been just lately, she's definitely been dancing that curve. Her win rate's a little bit low, Her ban rate was high for a while, but when she has played, she's not been as successful as people first thought. However, she did get a lot of bans over the course of, nerfs over the course of the season so far.
Her healing's been reduced, her shielding's been reduced, her damage has been reduced, her chain CC has been reduced, but still she makes it through the pick phase. And as you pointed out, I guess you've been reading your script, Yemoja and who you get picked up. High kill potential lane, high survivability. You're going to have a lot of survivability with the Riptide from Yemoja. It's a good pickup, and it doesn't really leave much weaknesses open. Renegades could try and pick up this Awelish to counter out the Riptide jumps, to counter out who you sleep. But so far, it's pretty ironclad, that pick.
Well, Jake's Fafnir locked in there, and I've not really seen much out of SoloOrTroll playing that lately, so I would have the idea that it's going to be Jake piloting the Fafnir. It's not something that we see too much of in the Pro League this year. We used to see it days gone by with the likes of Callus, who was one of the most well-known players of it, but Jake really likes to fall on that. And, ooh, this King Arthur hover, I like this at the moment. Take that away from Benji. It's also something in that solo lane that is pretty flexible into most matchups.
It does have very few poor matchups for King Arthur. And I like this. If Renegades continue the strategy from last game, which is to put SOT on an island, at least put him on a god that can fight on that island. Don't leave him high and dry. Don't leave him on this god that needs assistance. King Arthur, we saw last match, Benji left almost completely alone as well. But he thrived in that scenario. So why not do the same if you're going to shift your focus to long lane? Put someone that can fight over there.
And it's only a debate because Amaterasu from last game in the solo lane, sure, in the later stages, she's going to be so potent, but she struggles so early in that lane matchup in the early game that she's going to lose more pressure in the jungle on that side of the map because of it. Give him something like King Arthur, you can kind of battle back a little bit more and maybe hold your own a little bit longer before you need assistance. Radiance, though, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Thor drafted again, so far it's a salty run back, but it's not salty. I guess it's sweet run back from Radiance.
Yeah, I don't think they're pressed in the slightest. Adapting so comfortable on this god, and we saw him getting involved constantly across the entire map. He gets his first kill over in duo lane, he immediately rotates over to solo lane, he stops all the aggression again in the duo lane, he's all over the place, and at no point was he sacrificing his farm because he has that global ultimate. He can farm up his camps, ult from just about anywhere in the jungle, and be participating in the fights instantly. I like this pickup. It's going to do exactly what Radiance need, which is stop aggression onto CycloneSpin, make sure he can farm up for the late game. Adapting, kind of putting his ego in the back pocket. He doesn't want to be the hyper carry anymore, and he wants, and I think he's displaying it fully here, that Radiance want to play through CycloneSpin.
Whoa. You can't say to me that Thor is not a hyper carry in the hands of Adapting. Like, we've seen so many games with him pop off. There's no way that, sure, it's not a hyper carry sense of a hyper carry is like, I don't know, in a Wheelix late game or something like that. Like, it's still potent as hell, though, man, and it brings so much CC.
You're right. I can't say it about anything about Adapting's picks then, because he has such good performances on every single god. You've eliminated all analysis I can make on him, which is a fair point. When you have that adapting factor, he's going to bring that to the table. He's going to play whatever you put in his hands at the very top level. The bans, again, from Radiance, the exact same, taking out that X-Fall and that Chernobog. Maybe they know something about Renegades that we don't.
That's true. I think it's just matchup specific. They're looking at trying to ban away from BaRRaCCuDDa, getting the comfort. I mean, Jubalonke and, of course, Chernobog have relatively interesting styles of escapability and survival. Darkest of Night's pretty good against Thor ganks too, right? The rest of the team blocking vision and making issues there. And Chernobog, I guess it's A, global rotations, but B, being able to hide in the walls is pretty effective. However, counter bans from Renegades this time. No Discordia ban, no Merlin ban. Instead, it's Agni and Poseidon. Is that specifically for certain matchups here? They didn't like BigManTingz' performance on it last game. They banned that away, but then Poseidon's got a good matchup against Raijin and against Fafnir and King Arthur, I guess, with that weapon.
The cripple is incredibly potent into all three of those gods. Like, banning out the Agni shows that they're worried about that Hailfire. Just going to be able to poke from a distance. It has a very good matchup into Raijin as well. But you were right to point it out. They left Merlin and Discordia up. Those are two of the highest priority mages possible. Both are incredibly safe. They have these pseudo leaps. They have these great ways to apply anti-heal from a distance. Discordia has probably the best team fight of the four mages we've talked about so far.
Really?
It's a little bit concerning. Yeah, you got the Strife setup, you've got the Golden Apple in these AoE team fights. I love Discordia in any fight that doesn't happen in the middle of a lane, and even then, she's still very strong. This Pele pickup from Renegades, Lasbra getting back into his saddle here. It's going to have a decent matchup trying to chase down this Yemoja, but shutting down a Kakon as Pele, it's not going to be easy.
tough ask. Benji taking that CycloneSpin. I'm excited to see that matchup in the solo lane now. And Jingwei, their last pick for the Renegades, for BaRRaCCuDDa there. Bit of a different matchup for him too. I think the Discordia point of why I was so surprised is sometimes she's not as reliable in my eyes is what I normally see out of her. She definitely needs a high level of play, and sure, BigManTingz can do that, but there's a points of failure that are a little bit there more often than not compared to some of the other majors in my eyes. But looks like they're going to go with that route. You are the analyst here, Myth. I am just here to fill airwaves and jabber my mouth until the game's ready.
And here, I'll go back to analyzing for a second. This Jingwei pickup kind of shifts the focus that we saw from Renegades last game. But they were looking to aggress onto CycloneSpin constantly. They've picked a more passive lineup. Maybe we see a shift of focus over towards that solo lane, leave BaRRaCCuDDa on an island, on a god that is going to thrive on a safe island, who can just fly in a lane, play very safe. Maybe we see a little bit more focus over there, get some plays around the Pyromancer instead of the Gold Fury in the early.
What I do realize, though, is if you've got Lasbra in the jungle on Pele, sure, she's got great mobility, but Thor's got that semi-global presence. We'll see which one comes out on top. Radiance are currently up 1-0 over Renegades. Can they get the 2-0?
This is where we'll find out, Hindu. Thank you, as well as Mifflin there on the desk. Gets Finch and aggro as there's action early on yet again. Awesome Jake under some mild duress here over on the left-hand side of the map, but should still be A-okay. And aggro, what about you? Do you like the Discordia here? Poseidon, Agni, banned away. The Raijin here obviously picked. It looked like to me they were kind of trying to box Tingz into this pick.
Yeah, I think that Tingz is happy to be boxed in to this pick, personally. I mean, I think Discordia, with the most recent buff, has elevated herself to Raijin, Merlin, Persephone tier of really good. I think that she's in the top tier of mages now. You love the cripple against Fafnir and against King Arthur. The Agni ban was surprising.
Aror, though, in a lot of trouble. We've seen him fall for one first blood already in recent weeks, but there will not be a second. Aror makes it out of there, even pokes his head back in. I love that. I mean, I never worried that he was in any danger there, as he does end up surviving despite that early aggression, rejoining with CycloneSpin over here in left.
So this start the Renegades are doing, it's requiring Venenu to pick up Hand of the Gods early on. He's buying Hog, and that's why you kind of see him prioritize this tiny trinket start, because this start gives you the most pots without feeling like you're going to fall too far behind and sustain because of the natural lifesteal that it provides, and you get the MP5 for Mage's Blessing. So that makes some sense to me.
More aggression from Renegades, just like in Game 1 around the red buff. And here's Lasbra again, showing some presence near the long lane, trying to strip away this farm. So you're right, Aggro, to talk about how this is clearly the game plan, right, is to constantly have this pressure on the left-hand side. And this time, SOT, if he is going to be truly left on solo island, has a better boxing tool in that King Arthur up against the CycloneSpin of Benji. So do you like this iteration of the pressure out the long lane strat here from Renegades?
I like it more, but for me, the biggest problem is this Discordia, because now you're giving Benji, most likely Benji, Discordia passive, and that's going to let SoloOrTroll get poked, and when SoloOrTroll gets poked, that makes Adapting's job a lot easier on this side of the map to help get pressure and force him out. Also, considering the fact that Solo has to use his teleport in order to get to lane with this strat, whereas you don't have to normally, Benji is pretty free to just go super aggressive in this lane matchup with that Discordia passive and with the fact that his teleport is going to be up when you know SOT's is not.
I like the hammer into the knockup combination here on the left-hand side. And speaking of Fafnir and these hammers, I don't know, I feel like Fafnir's kind of fallen out to the wayside, especially if you end up falling a bit behind in the game that you're in. Fafnir can really struggle, because then his ultimate really just turns into everyone knows where I'm going to be in a few seconds and can wait to kill me. How do you feel about Fafnir's current strength?
I do think it was a little bit early for Renegades, but this is a signature awesome Jake God that he's very, very comfortable on, and it brings some decent CC, great objective pressure, all those same things. I don't know that this is exactly where I would have picked it, and I know if I'm picking Fafnir, I'd much rather have the enemy mid laner have Agni than something like the Discordia. Discordia Apple ruins Fafnir. It did what it was, slugging along the highway, going, puttering down like an old car. Now, I mean, Discordia Apple's got the brand new Lambo.
Adapting, trying to steal away the blue buff, but instead it's his life that gets taken away. First blood for Lasbra. and successful defense of the buff, and Benji can't quite punish SOT on the backside of it, and that felt a bit stubborn to me from adapting there, committing to that blue buff invade. What did you see there, Aggro?
It was a bit surprising, but SoloOrTroll was so low at the time. I understand why they felt like they could get away with that, but Lasbra just came in with really, really solid timing.
Good timing there from Lasbra. Sets up for that kill we see on the right-hand side. The horrific emblem just dropped here in left from Awesome Jake. As CycloneSpin does get bullied out of his bead. So Awesome Jake is remaining aggressive, looking for the underhand tactics, but good work from Aror. And now it's CycloneSpin going aggressive because Adapting's on the way. They might not even need him as they find tons of damage onto the support Fafnir. Now Adapting walks in, should be able to clean up this kill with the spin. But CycloneSpin still gets credit, I suppose, as he earned.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's fair to say. Just an odd decision there by Jake to jump in with that underhanded tactics. I did not like that call by him at all. The rest of that fight I thought was really well executed by him, and he hasn't made too many of those mistakes where I just got to picture myself as one of Jake's ADCs in a ranked game where you're like, what is this guy doing? He's just hard inting into my lane. I thought we'd see way more of those moments through the SPL so far. That is one of the first, I would say. Maybe the Horror Assault underneath Tier 1 Tower week 1 also was kind of reminiscent of that. But that was a little bit old Jake rearing his head right there.
I think that Jake has played really, really well, man, for what it's worth. I think that I had a lot of question marks about this guy coming to the league, and he's played well. And that was a bit of an odd moment from him, to the point where I almost wonder if it's coming from some frustration. Clearly, the game plan was to establish more long lane pressure than they've been able to get this set. And I wonder if he was just trying to make a bit of a hero play. Maybe he could find something there with some pressure and start to get them off, so he reached a little bit. But largely, I think that you're right to say that's an aberration for Awesome Jake now. He has played really well.
Just not exactly when you need it either, because if you want to get pressure over here, the last thing you want to do is hand CycloneSpin kills in this lane. You want to make sure that he's earning not necessarily kills, but you want to make him earn each creep that he gets on that left-hand side.
Thought there might be a gank over here, but Benji still had the dash, able to reposition and get away from any further aggression. In fact, he might be the one stopping Lasbra's back, and indeed he is able to. Lasbra does still have the ult if it comes to that, and it comes to that indeed. Has to use Volcanic Lightning just for the disengage. Adapting is there in right as well, so he's going to be going to the sky with that ultimate. Can't quite find the dunk. I don't think he had the vision to see where they were, though, so it wasn't going to happen, as BaRRaCCuDDa is also aggressing on the left-hand side of the map. Can't find the kill with the airstrike. Awesome Jake jumps in, takes a shot, but can't get the hammer, so CycloneSpin lives.
Man, a lot of low health bars, but no fireworks ultimately happen. Couple robbed home runs almost, as everyone gets away with a sliver of HP. Really good disengage by CycloneSpin on his left-hand side. He drops the ultimate, and that keeps Aror safe from the pressure that Awesome Jake and BaRRaCCuDDa were putting onto him. Adapting tries to find the blind dunk, just taking a guess at where Lasbra could be backing, and nearly had him, but was just a little bit off the mark, and Benji just continues to do Benji things. But again, I think it does get easier to do Benji things whenever you have that Discordia passive for you in the mid lane.
It does make life a bit easier for you on that solo hand son. Benji's just had a great set, man. Could you have picked a better time to go to bat for Benji on the SMITE game stream than today? And then he obviously does, end up showing up for you right when you need him to by having a great day here. And this is the kind of thing I think that Benji can do, and people just kind of forget. He will take games over, especially on Kakulin, right? He's got a skid for this god, so I expect him to look good on that.
Absolutely. I mean, consistency is the big thing, and that's where the crux of the argument that he's one of the best to ever do it in that short lane really comes from, is the consistency over a longer period of time than anybody else who's ever played solo at the SPL level, and that's just what you can expect out of this guy. He's done it very well so far today.
We'll get plenty more chances, I'm sure, to tune into the Benji show today, so we'll give him some time to start working on that. A mild grouping in mid, Aror showing some presence, whereas Awesome Jake is still with BaRRaCCuDDa, but not going to be able to make any ganks or anything like that happen. So last game we said we felt like they really needed the anti-heal up against Aror on the Yemoja and then Benji on the King Arthur. Do you think there's still that extra pressure on them? I mean, they don't even have the Odin this time to try and fall back to.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need anti-heal against Yemoja. I think that it was sorely lacking for Renegades last game. I think it was pretty noticeable that as soon as Radiance grouped up as 5, even before they had the 20k gold lead, that there were lots of fights that were close, but not really that close because of the amount of healing the Radiance had on their side. Cullen isn't King Arthur. He's not going to 1v3 you quite as easily whenever he has Glad Shield, but he can still do it just fine. It's still in the cards for him. I would love to see this heavy mace from Lasbra turn into a Brawlers. I think you need it.
Well, that's our first opportunity to see if there will be an adjustment from Renegades, from Coach Rowe, who we had the chance to talk to in the pregame. It will be where Lasbra likes to go with that next item. We might even get a chance to find out right now as he is starting his back. You heard Hindu talk about another interesting thing to watch out for in those builds on the desk, too, which that there was a bit more crit brought back in that last game one. I feel like we started to kind of tilt away from that. When are our hunters deciding that it is comfortable to go for crit?
Yeah, it feels like they're starting to go it a lot more consistently, as Adapting going for SoloOrTroll on this right-hand side. Excalibur's Wrath's already down. SOT in a pretty good position, but look at the backup coming. That's going to force everybody back.
Yeah, you could tell that Radiance knew it from minute 1 as Lasbra comes flying in to get the kill onto Benji, but that was a kill that they could definitely have gotten onto SoloOrTroll, but as soon as they didn't get it off that initial dunk, they started trying to run, and I gotta think that was Radiance with the read that the rotation was on the way.
Easy turnaround for SoloOrTroll right there, and that's just huge damage coming through, and Adapting's build is really more conducive to farming early than fighting early. Those Talaria boots,
you're right.
He's only on Mace 1. I wonder if he gets that kill. If he has Warrior Tabi, he definitely gets that kill. If he has Heavy Mace at that point in the game, but he just hadn't backed in quite some time, I imagine. I don't think Lasbra has such a lead now that he would be up a full item nearly at this point. Yeah, he's got 2k gold in hand. The fact that Adapting delays his back so long is the reason why that gank doesn't go so well.
And Renegades with a great rotation over there to the solo side. It's got some shades of earlier, of game 1, doesn't it? It's Renegades with pressure in left, and then they give away 1 kill that maybe they didn't necessarily have to, and then they're all rotating well to the right as CycloneSpin is in trouble here in left. He should certainly fall, and he absolutely will. They even get the ultimate out of CycloneSpin before he drops, but that is huge. They were able to find this pressure as Aror was elsewhere on the map. He's in base now. He certainly wasn't there to help.
Man, this has not been Cyclone's day. Normally something that I think Cyclone does better than almost anybody is his relic usage. His relic usage today has not been good. He had a bad Aegis in game 1. Right there, yeah. He's saving beads for next week at that rate. I mean, he eats that full CC chain. If you're going to get Fafnir hammered into Jingwei knockups, you're dead. You're dead in that spot. Even if you jump away, even if you drop your ultimate, you're going to die. I just don't understand his decision to hold the beads right there. And that's not been just his problem. It's been a lot of carry players in particular have had a lot of trouble with their relic usage so far this year. I don't know what it is, man. Maybe the buttons at home are sticking more than they do in the studio. Who knows?
Well, they got a nice kill just a moment ago onto Lasbra, did Radiance. They want a bit more, but what an answer from BaRRaCCuDDa and awesome Jake. Aror gets cut down to size. Adapting gonna walk into the wood chipper as well. And we haven't gotten to say BaRRaCCuDDa's name much lately. He got the big quadra play, I think, up against Sengwin a couple weeks ago, and since then has kind of been relegated to the sidelines. But BaRRaCCuDDa's here and ready to play when you give him a moment.
Man, just he and Jake are working really well together right now. Jake had a 6 stun right there to keep Aror away from his Riptide, which would have gotten him either out of danger entirely or further away from danger and caused Renegades to overcommit if they wanted to get that kill. This is the Renegades formula to winning games, by the way. This exactly right here. Awesome Jake and BaRRa getting pressure for you in duo. I think that's clearly the way they want to play based on their picks and bans. Lasbra's all over the map. He's gotten a bunch of kills early on. You've heard a bunch of people say how high up he is on the kill department for this team and across the SPL. He's one of the highest kill players in the league. SoloOrTroll is really having a much better game this time on the King Arthur. He's got 2 assists now. I mean, this is how Renegades want to play. They've got a 4k gold lead right now, and this is the exact opposite of how Radiance want to play. They don't want to be losing pressure on the left-hand side. They don't want to fall behind. This is not a team that has really shown me that they've got a really great answer to being behind. They haven't really made a great comeback or two yet. They've really just coasted through early games, staying even, and then they hit the Jets and they group up as 5 and they win the game. I don't know. This doesn't look like a great spot for Radiance to be in right now.
It's not, and really the problem is BaRRaCCuDDa first and foremost, man. He's at a great point in this game here now. Has the Bowers Gauntlets finished, and on the balance blade, as there's more action in right, it's Benji whose life is in trouble, and Awesome Jake gobbles him up. A little bit of help from SOT, so some revenge for Renegades on the short side of the map. They'll get the tier 1 and continue to pressure because there is no rotation from Radiance coming. I said the problem is going to be BaRRa, but hey, a level 14 King Arthur, we already saw what that could do last game.
Yeah, and Benji's been on the receiving end of a couple ganks now that have been effective both times. The first time it was a turnaround from Radiance's own gank, but since then, Adapting has relegated himself to farming, and this is what I mentioned last game, where when Adapting gets leads, he puts the foot on the throat faster than just about anybody. But when a Radiance starts to fall behind and Adapting starts to fall behind, I think this team loses its aggressiveness maybe a little bit more quickly than I would like, and Renegades are not letting up on that pressure like I think they did a bit in Game 1.
Yeah, they didn't seem to be sure where they wanted to go to me in Game 1. Like, what was kind of the Chapter 2 was what I felt like with that play, and I think a lot of it really did come down to Lasbra getting picked by that red buff. Remember that kill that just definitely didn't need to happen? Well, now that he hasn't had his momentum slowed down, he's played a lot better here in this game. Good work from Adapting, getting away from that pressure, though it did cost him the beads as Renegades catch him out.
And all of these kills that have happened recently and all the good stuff, save for that turnaround on that right-hand side where the boys come in to help SoloOrTroll, it's been around Jake and this Fafnir. I mean, he has just been everywhere. He goes right side, ganks Benji. He's the reason that a SoloOrTroll kills him. You get BaRRaCCuDDa over here a lead because of Jake's play on the Cyclone landing the hammer. Cyclone doesn't beads. They get that kill. Then they kill Aror. I mean, Jake has been everywhere so far in this game, and that's huge for the Renegades. And a Fafnir with a lead is hard to deal with, man, because he starts to hit really, really hard with that transformation.
Yep, when he's in Draconic Corruption and breathing on you, it feels like a lot of damage. And, you know, they banned away the Poseidon in the P's and B's phase here as well. They really were trying to make sure that even if Awesome Jake maybe weren't ahead, that he wouldn't be getting so easily blown up by Radiance here with this draft. But that's exactly to your point. I mean, when Fafnir's level 13, he's a little bit ahead. When he's right there with everyone else, even if you know where he's landing, he can be a bit hard to kill. So I think that Awesome Jake is in a good position here to have one of those games that we talked about earlier where Awesome Jake shows that he's not that same Awesome Jake you might know from Ranked, as Primal Fury does start to get pulled here by Renegades. Radiance are nearby, so they certainly can answer. Solo laners won't be a part of this. They're both over in right, so a full 4-on-4 happening here in left. But Renegades getting delayed out a bit. That might give time for the solo laners to rotate after all. They're right near mid on those right side Harpies.
No frenzy there for Jake means that Gold Fury is not quite as easy of a fight as I think Renegades would have liked. SoloOrTroll was on the way over, but so was Benji. I do think Renegades need to group up, though, and start forcing fights, but just like last game, you're asking a team that has a healer in Yemoja to group up, and Renegades don't have any itemization against it right now. I think that their lead is big enough that they can fight through that at this point. This should still be a very favored fight for them, but that does concern me here is the ability for Radiance to just use this Yemoja sustain without Renegades having a good answer.
Well, still on the left side of the map this time is SOT, so I think that they're pretty serious about the Primal Fury here aggro. They are resetting it a bit, trying to see if they can bait Radiance in a bit more. Auror's in trouble top side, good stun. Allows them to reposition, but the Primal Fury is still low. Auror starting to move into rage as Renegades able to grab the Primal Fury. That's the ultimate from Lasbra down defensively as Adapting dunks in, but he doesn't find much with it except a coffin. Adapting is dead early and he's dead often. Lasbra gets the credit, but the rest of Radiance have to disengage on the back of it. Renegades get the Primal Fury and the pick, and they're ready to leave.
Man, that was a weird decision by Radiance, I think, to go in after the fact. You're either going in while Renegades have to juggle Fury aggro and damage coming from it, and how much damage are we using to secure it? they kind of let Renegades go through the hardest part of the engagement without any test, and then they give them the easy question right after the fact. Hey, do you want to fight when you've used literal nothing and you're up 5k? Sure. Yeah, we don't have to worry about losing the Fury after the fact.
A TP from Benji. He will be here to help defend the tier 2 on the left-hand side, and Renegades give it up. They were going to take it if it was free, but don't want to have this particularly scattered fight. And it's not even just that Radiance took that fight at a really bad time, but I don't think they went about taking that fight. Like, let's say that we're already in the flowchart, we decided to take it. I don't think they took it in a particularly effective way. I mean, Adapting's dunk wasn't excellent, and he basically ended up dying right away.
And it was on. He was looking for Lasbra, who was stunned by Aror at the time, and he put it a little bit far left. Maybe he thought the Lasbra was going to beads, which I think is a reasonable expectation. But I think that you can probably split the difference there and put it where it hits him if he doesn't beads, and still hits him if it does. Where it stood, it just didn't hit anybody at all. He split the uprights.
Pyromancer is taken by Radiance, so that's actually nice. They get a little bit of farm back. That's the ultimate out from BigManTingz. Might have been looking for the CC immunity, but he's got to keep right on trucking. Uses the Aegis to get out of the Taiko drums for Venenu, and CycloneSpin is not rotated at all. He's using this time to grab the tier 1 tower over in left. So this is actually not bad for Radiance. They steal the Pyromancer, and CycloneSpin gets a little bit of extra farm on the left-hand side, but doesn't get the back off. 3 or 2 crits come out from BaRRaCCuDDa, so now he's ready to fight. Good stun from CycloneSpin. Avoids the airstrike damage, but he's way too low. Dive bomb allows him to reposition. He might live from BaRRa, but not from the gank squad that's on the way.
Lasbra's blink will ensure that they get the kill on the Cyclone right there. Lazy back at him a little bit from Cyclone. I think he was shopping before his back got interrupted.
It's a good work from BaRRaCCuDDa to rotate over and not give up on the play and still be able to take down CycloneSpin. Adapting's ultimate's down as well. We saw him dunk down in clear view of Renegades, so they for sure know that that tool's not available either. But this is odd. Radiance want to take this fight. It's a bit of aggression with the River's Rebuke, but Lasbra in the backline says it's time to feast, brings Adapting down quite low. Tings has been left all alone, and SoloOrTroll grabs that kill. What about in front of the tier 2 tower? A good Riptide does allow for the disengage, but they're just going to take the tier 2.
And Lasbra is going to have an easy time chasing down Adapting, though Adapting does have speed and Lasbra doesn't, unless Adapting can be a little bit sneaky right here. Finally spotted out, and what do you know, Lasbra's able to find his 3rd in a row, though nearly a nice play by Adapting. Tier 2 tower goes down, and Renegades really have this game by the throat, don't they? I mean, they are up 7k at this point. Experience is about the same. Doesn't feel like that, though, because a lot of members are pretty even. Lasbra has a really big XP lead. I believe that SoloOrTroll has an XP lead. No, he doesn't. In fact, it's really majority on Lasbra over Adapting right now. 2 levels in support is noteworthy, but not really that backbreaking. It's really only this level deficit for Lasbra and Adapting that's really hurting Radiance.
That's why that fight they chose to take the tier 2 was so concerning, as now the Renegades start up this Fire Giant. We'll forget about Act 1 and move on to Act 2, as the Fire Giant has been brought down quite low. The rest of Radiance all here to try and defend, as Benji gets grabbed first. Is Rage transformed, but you couldn't tell it from looking at him. Lasbra melts him with a little bit of help from Venenu off the Taiko drum. So now it's time to start this FG dance once again, but the tune's a bit different when there's only 4 of you. Adapting takes to the sky, looking for the dunk, does come in, but they've dropped the Fire Giant to take the fight instead. It's still leashed, but they get the kill onto Aror. The Fire Giant dance now really starting to favor the Renegades, as BaRRaCCuDDa brings it down, a 2 for 0 and the buff.
And that's just really, really good patience by Renegades. They understand that they've got such a big itemization lead, an XP lead when it comes to the jungle and support, to where they can take this fight as long as they need to and let Radiance march themselves in one by one and take care of them as such. And they get the Fire Giant, they get a couple kills at the exact same time, and there's going to be a tier 2 tower without any sort of contest. Don't think it's going to be a Phoenix with both Lasbra and SoloOrTroll on this left-hand side. Instead, it should just be everyone from Renegades rotating over, grab this tier 1 in mid, and then head towards the Oni Fury.
We've talked about this already, though, but how important is this set for determining the trajectory of both of these teams, right? Radiance, just a week and a half ago, was my top team in the league. A lot of teams, the top team in the league, but they end up losing that set. They dropped down a bit. Renegades were near the bottom for a lot of teams just a couple of weeks ago, but these two teams have both made some adjustments, and for Renegades, it's on the up, and for Radiance, it might be a bit on the down, as I think this Renegade squad is showing that if you can kind of break up this early game from Radiance a bit and not let them just make it to the late game for free, then they might be a bit more vulnerable than some teams thought.
I think that's a great point, and maybe a little bit of, you know, the honeymoon period for the super team starts to wane a little bit. You know, you're starting to get into the deeper end of the season, and now it's starting to come apart of the seams a little bit, and that's natural. It doesn't mean that even if Radiance are to lose the set, that they're doomed forever or anything like that. That's not what I would ever say, but it's certainly a trend, isn't it? That they get absolutely housed by Rival last week, and now they're down 11-2 and 12k gold in just 24 minutes to a Renegades team that has looked inconsistent at best.
Could potentially be trouble for them in the future. Another thing of noting schedule-wise is that once this week's over, I think everyone will have played each other at least once, which means we'll be coming around to those second at-bats, right, up against Radiant. So it's a scary time to potentially be looking a bit weak, as Aror has already taken quite a bit of damage, brought down to half, but SOT is stuck in the middle of everybody. That's a great River's Rebuke from Aror to force him to commit too far and to set up for that kill. Now they've defended the left side Phoenix nicely and pushed Renegades back at least for a moment.
Yeah, SOT just never got that Excalibur's Wrath off. That's what he really needed in order to buy time underneath that Phoenix. With the Suns coming down and the River's Rebuke there, turning and running doesn't do you a whole lot of good, is King Arthur. I think turning around and trying to find that ult would have better served SOT, but whether he didn't have enough energy or just didn't feel like he had a target that he could have hit from that position, it results in him getting killed much earlier than Renegades would have liked, and that's going to neuter the rest of this Fire Giant. I mean, 50 seconds left. SOT's down for 20 of them. You can't get to the Phoenix in 30 seconds, so Radiance have bought themselves another window to try and contest on this FG.
Still down, you know, about 11,000 gold, but this is how it begins, right? I mean, certainly this is still Renegades' party. Certainly they're still the ones driving the car here right now, but they're opening up this door a little bit for Radiance and allowing them a chance back in. I think what's going to be important coming into this next fight is where does Lasbra choose to go? If they're going to start up this Fire Giant fight again, they let BaRRaCCuDDa and Venenu kind of on it last time and did a good amount of zoning, did the rest of the Renegades. What could the call be here? And where is Lasbra planning to go?
Well, Lasbra's just going to try and chase down wherever BigManTingz and CycloneSpin are, because those two have been unable to get off good damage onto the enemy backline so far this game, and I think that's because of how well Lasbra and SOT and Jake have done so far this game. But in response to that, Adapting's got to find something on this Thor. Take a look at the player damage charts. He's at the bottom overall, not at the bottom if you don't count the supports, at the bottom, and that just can't happen to have your star jungler be this low on the player damage charts. I mean, the player damage across the board is not particularly high, but you got to be a little bit more effective, I think, for Adapting.
Adapting has been biding his time, looking for his moments this game. Well, I'll tell you, down 12,000 gold, potentially losing here. This is a great moment for him to suddenly start stepping up. The Fire Giant will be back down another 10 seconds. And from this positioning, I don't think Radiance are really going to come out to contest. They are starting to group up in the jungle now, but maybe that's just to share farm. It looks like Renegades should be able to get this Fire Giant uncontested. Is that the call that you like, just defending on the Phoenix?
Yeah, I think that when you're down 12k, it's just too much to try and come out and defend on a neutral site. Even if you let Renegades pull fire, and then you're going to, you know, try and deal damage to them, then they have so much itemization at this point that they're dealing fire without taking a whole lot of damage at the same time. And plus, look at what just happened when Renegades tried to siege on the Phoenix. The AoE control here from Radiance is pretty good. I think Discordia is really solid on the base defense because strifing frontliners or backliners together is pretty easy over that Phoenix wall. You've got really good wall geometry for Thor to come through, or River's Rebuke to cut off escape paths. Sunbreaker is solid, though one-time use. So I like Radiance's decision here for sure.
So the right side Phoenix, they'll be threatening the one closest to the FG. They don't get much damage off this initial push, and Radiance aren't really fully set for this defense. Look where Benji is. He still is in the middle lane alongside Lasbra, who has pulled some attention with him there. Adapting, they certainly know that he's lurking over the wall. Look at all these pings. They're watchful for potential stuns or hammers to come their way as Renegades continue to be slow and steady with their push. But once this minion wave comes in, that might be when they're ready. So the Sunbreaker ends up dropping. The River's Rebuke catches SoloOrTroll again. That's the game plan. When SOT steps forward, drop the wall to cut him off.
And Jake's got to go in now to try and buy some extra space for the team. Venenu's beads come out, and now Benji's putting out great damage.
He might have been a little bit early on that ultimate, but in comes Adapting, and they know that Tingz is sitting duck. He goes to the Taiko drums and has the turn and burn. It's Adapting that ends up sent back to the base the hard way. Benji is going to fall as well. Renegades might have lost SOT, but Radiance get a bit ahead of themselves trying to press outside of the actual Phoenix, and Renegades with 4 can still threaten.
This is what a 12k lead plus Fire Giant buys you. I mean, it buys you a couple of mistakes. It buys you losing your solo laner and getting zoned and taking too much damage on your way out, because you can just reset and do this.
Oh, but you don't want this from Awesome Jake. Good work with the strike to lock him down, and they defend. The right side Phoenix is still standing. That is so important. They're able to keep that up. And Radiance, considering with a bounce, nope, it's not going to bounce just yet. And even with a little bit extra movement speed, not going to catch up. So that's good works even still for Radiance to defend. They can't afford to lose anyone else here, though, as they regroup under the Phoenix.
And SoloOrTroll is back and teleports in, so this is huge. Now this right side Phoenix is toast. Maybe not, actually. Aurora's ultimate comes up right on time. Should still be the Phoenix and Aurora. That bought time for Adapting and Benji to respawn.
So they are now back. There will still be 4 members to defend, but they do finally lose that right side Phoenix. Renegades can now look to threaten the mid Phoenix, and there is no threat. They'll get locked in by the River's Rebuke. So Venenu goes up with the Taiko drums. He's just waiting for Adapting to land with that ultimate. It sets up for Awesome Jake to get a kill. What a call to have Venenu on Adapting patrol, and it's worked beautifully now twice in a row. They're in position to threaten the mid Phoenix. That's been burned down as well, and Radiance can't quite defend that either. This is a great push from Renegades. A little bit delayed, but they got what they want.
Man, I mean, Adapting's done much better now in these last 2 team fights where he's been up. I mean, we were asking for him to find priority targets in the back line. He's done that. It's just that Doke number 1, it eats Venenu's beads. Well, Venenu had already beads, but Venenu's in the ultimate. He was focusing out the Raijin. Venenu's turn and burn with the Taiko drums were fantastic. That time, he doesn't go for the Raijin. He goes for the Jing away. BaRRa's beads were up, so he's able to beads and dash away. And Adapting's doing a lot of damage with these dunks every time, but he's insta-dying every time. And again, that's what happens when you as a team just aren't effective until too late in the game. You let Renegades get all this itemization in their corner. They're gonna blow you up whenever you start finally finding those good initiations.
And I don't want people to think that the call for Adapting to be aggressive, you were asking for more from him earlier, was incorrect. It's just that it needed to happen sooner, right? It's like the difference between bluffing earlier on in the hand or trying to wait until the end when everyone knows how good their pair actually is. You got to make sure that you're getting out there early to try and slow some of this down. Now it's going to be much, much harder for Adapting to try and go to the back line and just blow someone up the way that we would have liked him to a bit sooner, and that's just good awareness. Renegades are coming in a bit more focused, aren't they? When Adapting goes up, they already know what their game plan is to deal with it, as Renegades have caught Radiance grouping up as 5 outside of their base, and they're happy to take this fight. SoloOrTroll stuns BigManTingz to the right-hand side, gets the beads out from him, so they regroup. The River's Rebuke cuts the fight in half. Adapting dunks, but BaRRa responds with the ultimate, and Adapting melts for it. They catch Benji as well into the Taiko drums. They won't pull anyone else back, but Radiance only have 3 members to play defense.
I don't think Fire Giant really matters that much now for Renegades. I think they could have just walked up and ended. They decided to go for Fire, which is a bit of a surprise to me. I mean, no beads for BaRRa, but what are you scared of there? I mean, just no ultimates available. for Radiance. I know that this is still very likely an end call for Renegades eventually.
Very, very likely.
But why not now? You know, why wait?
It's hard to do anything wrong when you're in this dominant of a position, but maybe a little bit of hesitation there for the Radiance boys, but I don't mind it. Go back and get the FG, give themselves every chance. They're so heavily favored as long as they go right now before Benji and Adapting are back up, and they are going to move right to the Titan. It's down to half HP. Radiance starting to buckle here a little bit as the Renegades barrel in and take game 2 to force a game number 3.
And that one never really felt like it was in doubt, right? I mean,
It didn't.
Renegades were in control early and often in that right side. As soon as that gank went poorly and Benji ends up dying on that right-hand side, SoloOrTroll is able to get so much more free pressure over there. He looks so much more clean. And BaRRaCCuDDa and Jake just run the duo lane. Yeah, that's right. Awesome Jake, 408, and BaRRaCCuDDa absolutely stomp the Aror CycloneSpin duo lane, and because of it, Renegades win the game.
It's hard to believe, but that's exactly how it happens. Great performance from Jake. Even with that curious death he ended up taking earlier on, was able to bounce back and recover nicely to set up for a game 3. We don't get a lot of these in Season 7, but a special treat for you, Chad, as I get it back over to the desk.
Well. I mean, we do get a couple game 3s, okay? They'll just be a little bit later on in the season, you know, not right at the start. Renegades up against him, though. Going to be a really good situation for him. If great play from them overall. The duo lane got off to a great tear there. BaRRaCCuDDa and also Jig, really, that synergy is coming along great. Meanwhile, that adaptation of giving SoloOrTroll King Arthur, it looks like the Battle of the King Arthur is on the board now.
Yeah, SOT, or maybe more rightfully so, King Arthur decimated that soul lane. He facilitated so many plays, and it seemed like Renegades really did shift their focus towards camping out the short lane. Lasbra showed a lot of pressure over there, and despite that, as Aggro and Finch pointed out so well, awesome Jake and BaRRaCCuDDa still won their lane against Aror and CycloneSpin. They found these early kills. They found all sorts of aggression off the back end of it, opening up objectives. And I think you really do have to point it out. CycloneSpin has been very hesitant to use his relics today. Bede's been used not at all. Aegis used in questionable times. Aggro pointed out during the cast. Maybe it's a little bit of a pre-game jitters. Maybe he's just a little bit frustrated with how game 2 was going. But game 3, Renegades versus Radiance, who thought we'd be here?
I love that little play that we saw between Lasbra and Adapting too, because I think Adapting, I like the idea of that battle that he had there. They were trying to climb back into this game somehow, but Lasbra had those beads available and turned it around. I'm talking about the dual lane a little bit more there, Myth. Honestly, I think the thing for me is I've always seen Aurora as one of the most aggressive, really good up-in-your-face frontliners for any team that he's ever been on. Seeing him play someone like Yemoja, it's a lot more backline-esque. It's a different play style to it. It's a little bit more defensive as the game goes on. And for me, I think that kind of limits a couple of the options that you see out of the Radiance lineup. You know, you see them diving on in with Benji and Aror leading the charge. Well, if Auror's not going to be there in the first place and Benji struggles in the laning phase, they don't have that front line anymore. There's more reliance on Adapting. And I think it's that three-pronged attack that you normally see from them where they find a lot of success.
Having Aurora play one of these more passive gods is a little bit interesting. It doesn't fit his playstyle nearly as much as any of these warriors we normally see, or more like aggressive guardians. But he's been able to find fantastic plays. He's facilitating long-range stuns. On the scene at Phoenix Sieges, we saw him find these huge ultimates to completely separate SOT, getting SOT picked out twice. Aurora is by no means not good at Yemoja. He's playing incredibly well on a god that hasn't seen a ton of success in the SPL, but maybe that lack of success is due to it being Yemoja, not necessarily the person piloting it. Aurora has had the quietest set we've seen from him this year so far, and I think that is purely based off the fact that he is playing a god that is really only able to play inside the back line of his own team instead of being that aggressive playmaker that you so want to see.
Well, let's get into picks and bans for game number 3 then, because the honest point from my point of view is it's day 1, it's set 1, and there's a chance for a lot of people's brackets to be busted this week already on the voting options. Renegades' real support was, I believe, under 10% of the fan base that voted for them this week, expecting Radiance to find the victory here. But we're tied up at 1-1 now, and I'm wondering if we're going to see anything different in the picks and bans, or we're just going to run it back one more time.
I mean, both teams have won with the same bans twice. Renegades does shift their second ban phase in Game 2 a little bit to target out some different mages. Maybe we see more of the same from them. Both teams are in that if it's not broke, don't fix it phase. They've both found one win with the exact same bans. Jormungandr coming out from Renegades first. That's bog standard as well. I would like to see that continued focus from Renegades towards the Soul lane. We saw that Lasbra got off to a really good start, and even though you have the safer pick on BaRRaCCuDDa in the Jing way, they still run their lane there. You might as well put all your chickens in one coop if you would. Continue attacking that Soul lane if you are Renegades.
Wait, don't you?
You don't want to separate them, right?
You're supposed to put all your chickens in one coop. You don't have multiple coops, do you?
I don't have any
multiple coops. Can you imagine the amount of fines we'd get if there was multiple coops floating around? That'd be crazy. We can't do that, Myth. Hercules banned away again, though, for sure. And yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what happens in that solo lane. Do we see a King Arthur go to Renegades early? Do Radiance bounce back with it? Because the funny thing is that CycloneSpin, it's not really had success in that game. He got focused out heavily, and when he came to the teamfight stages, nuked immediately. He couldn't make an impact at all.
And that's all due to Renegades chain CC again. I mean, we see all of it lock down this warrior. We see Lasbra even ignoring the actual backline and focusing out the CycloneSpin as well. And that's gonna happen. If you fall behind in Soul Lane to an aggressive god like King Arthur or to a jungler that has fantastic gank potential like Pele, you're gonna have a hard time, especially on a god like CycloneSpin who's really contingent on winning the early. He needs to get that early aggression rolling and keep attacking enemies. The second he falls behind, the main way that CycloneSpin stops people from aggressing on him is his own damage, but when he's 2 or 3 levels down, he doesn't deal enough for anyone to really care about him.
3 times in a row now that we've seen the same bans from Renegades and Radiance as we now look at what Renegades' first pick option will be. Funny enough, Renegades have also been on the Order side all 3 games. So even though Radiance has lost, they still want to keep with that Chaos side. The loser of a game gets to decide who is going to be first pick or second pick in the next phase. Radiance just want to keep that side, it seems, and that's giving Renegades this window to pick up the Raijin once more.
And I could break down this Raijin pick. I've done it plenty of times a day, but it's incredibly safe to pick up early on. Not much is really going to counter it out. It's going to have that leap. You have the CC immunity on your ultimate. It does show your hand, again, that, yeah, you know where Raijin's going. He's going to go in the middle of the map. But again, Renegades are forcing Radiance to take 2 picks themselves that might be a little bit more susceptible to being countered.
That's true.
It's completely safe. Aror, going straight back to Yemoja.
Okay. I wonder if we're going to see a bit of a change in Radiance, though. Like, if we notice the second ban phase there, Radiance got that window to ban away a couple of mages from BigManTingz in mid lane. BigMan, arguably in that game, couldn't really get things going on Discordia. It was quite a neutral mid lane, honestly. But I wonder if they're going to look to adjust now in this stage, although they may still want that Thor for the jungle if they're going to keep running this back. Same duo again.
Exact same picture. We might as well just run back the death segment from the last game because it's generally the same.
Well, we can't do that because
Yemoja?
Renegades won last game, so we can't run it back, can we, Myth?
That's fair. Renegades did win, and they're going to go back exactly again to this Fafnir pickup on the 408. Yeah, he's got a hammer. It stuns. Long-range CC. I think I said that. I'm getting deja vu. Are you getting deja vu?
A little. But at the same time, like, it's a different game, you know? The tables have turned. It's funny enough to me to see Renegades say, yeah, let's just run it back because we did well there. Whereas Radiance are like, hey, we lost, but we still have confidence so far in that dual lane composition. 3 games in a row, right? Yemoja and Hou-Yi together. They're 1-1 so far. What does game 3 hold?
And how much can you rely on Renegades getting that insane start that they got last game? Lasbra picks up first one on adapting and immediately continues the aggression there. Off the failed attempt on a blue buff invade. I mean, you can't rely on that to happen every single time. How is Renegades draft going to come to fruition if they don't have a fantastic early game? Taking a peek at it, Fafnir does have a very good early. Raijin struggles a little bit until he hits level 5. This time, though, Radiant's going to pick up the Agni.
And that's one thing I was wondering about there. Because of the counterban phase being so focused to BigManTingz, maybe you could just give him a little bit of an earlier pick of something he wants to play there. The Agni into Raijin matchup, something we talked about a little bit earlier on. We'll see how that fleshes out. But it does mean that Renegades have to return their attention in bans elsewhere. Would you look at Benji, or would you look at adapting here, Myth?
I'm going to go ahead and look at Benji. I mean, we've seen that Benji is almost single-handedly capable of winning Game 1 for Radiance, whereas adapting has shown Thor both times with widely varying degrees of success. Game 2, that Thor really didn't get to get off the ground at all, which is a slight failing of the god. Thor doesn't scale incredibly well into the late game, so if he falls behind early, he's really got nothing to lean back on. But if you want to take it away from him, which Renegades seem to do, that's absolutely fine. Force adapting to play something that he hasn't had literally an hour to warm up on.
Xbalanque banned again by Radiance, and Susano this time round. So just trying to chip away a little bit at Lasbra's god pull there. They're not scared of the Pele this time round. Why the Susano, though, do you reckon? Is it just the mobility and chase potential he's got? Like, what is it specific about Susano they're worried about here?
Susano has a fantastic matchup into Huyi and Agni that the third ability is going to make it very easy to chase down the mobility that they have. Then you can pull them back in with the Typhoon. There's a lot that Susano brings in terms of just raw 1v1 potential. One of the best damaging junglers you could absolutely pick. So banning it out, at this point, I think we can all agree Susano ban is standard. You want to ban it against just about everybody. And Radiance do exactly that. And then they take away the Pele from Lasbra. That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there was 3 bans towards junglers in that phase for sure, and then Radiance get the chance afterwards to pick up Pele early. So now it's going to see a bit of a switch up for Lasbra in the jungle here, and what he's going to choose to play. Quite a few very god pulls. Would Thanatos work well here? I'm just spitballing, really. I'm thinking Thana could be an option. Oh, it looks like it could be a Serqet being hovered over here instead.
Thanatos would have been absolutely fine to pick up here. He's going to have a very good time ulting, but this Serqet being hovered, going to take away the healing from Yemoja. You're going to have a fantastic 1v1 potential into this Pele. She can't CC you with a knockup if you're literally stabbing her with your stinger on her back. The CC immunity is going to be very nice for the Serqet as well to avoid maybe a stun from Huyi. She has fantastic mobility to close the gap on Agni. I like this pickup a lot, but she's going to have to do a lot in the early game to keep pace with this Pele, as Pele has a ton of mobility to farm around the jungle. She's got some of the best team fighting capabilities in terms of raw damage out of a jungler as well. You're going to have to do quite a bit if you want to maintain your pace.
I'm smirking because it looks like Jingwei's back again. BaRRaCCuDDa back on his Jingwei grind from last year. Seems to be rearing its ugly head. But at the same time, that duo lane Fafnir Jingwei, they won the battle game 2 up against Yemoja Houyi, so why not? Oh, though, this pick at the end there, the Athena for solo lane, more than likely for Benji here. These rotations could come up really big from this.
And it's going to be having fantastic synergy with the Pele. You find the volcanic eruption, immediately Defender of Olympus is going to be chasing it down. If Yemoja gets gone on, Defender of Olympus is there. There's so many ways that he can get involved a lot earlier on in the game. And I like that pickup, especially considering Renegades pick up King Arthur, one of the best fighting gods in lane. You might as well pick someone that's going to play elsewhere on the map.
These guys are going to game so quick. I've not had a chance to ask you a prediction, but guess what? The casters are already ready. We're tied up at 1-1. Let's get it over to them.
It is indeed time for a game number 3, and it's going to be Benji on the Athena. And this is actually one of Benji's stronger picks. I don't think of it normally as a Benji god, but every time he locks this one in aggro, he does end up having really good performances on it. You excited to see him rocking the Athena solo?
Yeah, I think Myth brings up a really good point on the desk that you don't want to necessarily sit in lane against Arthur anyways, but I'm a little bit concerned that he's got to be over there at some point, right? I mean, is he going to be able to consistently get blue buffs? Is he going to be able to be effective whenever he rotates over? And is he going to just have enough farm to be effective at that point? I think is a big question mark.
This is gross, though, what happens on the left-hand side of the map. It's so many people over here, and it is all 3 games. Venenu has done the speed buff here by himself. The purple does eventually get defended by Radiance. Now they want to see if they can punish SOT. They do get the stun, but no one else willing to commit to trying to burn down a King Arthur this early on in the game. So Benji adapting, get back to blue a little bit earlier. Meanwhile, Lasbra is still on the left-hand side of the map. He went over towards red and dropped that, and is going to head up and do oracles, looks like, or maybe come up and help out with the alphas. Not entirely sure where Lasbra's going. Now he'll go do his own red.
He's gonna try and invade on Radiance's red. BigManTingz just dashed in. Always risky, and he might get punished.
But he couldn't have known, I guess, that Lasbra was going to be here on the red buff. In all honesty, I don't know if I agree that it's risky. I'd have thought Lasbra would be anywhere else but red buff just now. But that's exactly where it was, and it cost him the beads.
Well, if Benji relays the information that SoloOrTroll got blue, but is still level 1, and you should have noticed that SoloOrTroll had Hog in inventory if they were fighting against him over by purple. I think it's pretty safe to assume that SOT is going to solo his own blue buff. You know Venenu has speed, and Lasbra's been starting at Renegades purple. We did our purple this time, unlike every other game, because Lasbra's been there to do purple right away at level 2 every other time. I think that it is kind of fair to assume that that's exactly where he's going to be, is that red buff, because there's nowhere else he can be. He's either invading our red or going to do his back rights, and I'm not super scared of him doing back rights at that point. You know, you're pretty happy if that's where he is. I think that if Radiance, you know, Game 3 especially, Game 1 you're not really sure what's happening. Game 2 you probably have a pretty decent idea. By now, Game 3 you should know exactly what's up with this start for Renegades and where everybody is. I think that BMT makes a bit of a mistake there.
Yeah, and I think that that's the right read, but I wonder if maybe Tingz expects him to be there even sooner. Like, if that's the call, right? Like,
sure.
Lasbra goes
That's
red
fair.
to red. Maybe that's the thought. And so once he gets there and red buff is up, he's like, okay, well, maybe he's literally somewhere else. I don't know. I don't know. I want to give Tingz some kind of out here, but obviously caught out and hit with the purification and Nasty's purification beads. It ends up working, though. They defend that red top side, or rather invade
Right.
the red top side does Tingz, and so they're able to come back in towards them.
Yeah, I mean, they don't lose red. He doesn't die. No harm, no foul, but he did lose beads, and Lasbra could
Right.
be back sooner rather than later.
It's certainly something that could be punished, but Lasbra's looking to try and collect somewhere else. Awesome Jake has used the Horrific, but a great Riptide from Aror gets them both out, meaning Lasbra drops the Blink and the Horrific from Awesome Jake without really getting anything. Beads, everything else still up for Radiance.
And look at the adjustment that Aurora has made this game. Instead of going for the Shell, like everyone has gone all year because Shell is insane, he goes Sprint because these Horrifics have been so important from Jake to just set up no-win situations for Aurora and for CycloneSpin. Those are huge, and I think that adjustment alone would have saved Aurora's life even if Lasbra would have hit that Cobra's Kiss.
Good work from him to have that sprint, and then obviously to find the good Riptide. So CycloneSpin and Aurora have pressure in the long lane for the first time this set. I don't think we've gotten to see them up at the opposing tower line all day long, but this is what Aurora CycloneSpin duo lanes usually look like, and that is all in service of getting credit over to the Renegades and Awesome Jake and BaRRa for having looked good in this matchup really up until now. And Lasbra wants to take another crack at this gank here on the left-hand side, and this time it should work a lot better. The sprint's still available, though, as you already covered, but Lasbra couldn't find the timing. Aurora checks the jungle, and the gank doesn't work.
Now BaRRa has to three-way split this wave. I wonder if that keeps him from having enough to go back and buy boots outright or buy Devos outright. He's bottom of the net worth charts, and yeah, he's actually not even close to having enough to buy either full boots or full Devourer's gauntlets at this point. Cyclone's getting close to being able to buy his boots.
And this is our third game where we get to see how it is that Renegades want to deal with this Yemoja in the long lane as well, and if they think it's worth buying and prioritizing the anti-heal. It didn't happen really in either of those first two games in terms of trying to get it online quickly, so we'll get one more chance to see if Renegades really do want to adjust to it. I mean, in Game 2, they beat it with that build, and they have been rather consistent. They know the King Arthur works, so they picked that now twice. They saw the Fafnir works, they picked that twice. I'm wondering if we're going to have another game where they really just don't worry about prioritizing any.
I would be surprised if they changed their minds at this point, Finch. I do think that a lot of the reason why it worked last game was because they just got so far ahead it didn't matter. I would not rely on that in this game necessarily. I don't think that was the, it was a non-factor in that game or anything like that. It was just the lead was so big it didn't really matter too much. So if this game is a little bit more even or Renegades fall behind, I still think that anti-heal is going to be important. I'm just not holding my breath for it this time around.
Hey, I found out this morning with my Sanguine tweet, there's a lot of ways that people can read data wrong, so perhaps that's what could be happening here. Just because it worked in Game 2 doesn't mean it will always work. A quick ultimate from adapting, and it had to be used there. It allows him to disengage. Where he does not have beads, he started with Blink on the Pele, so he's got to be quick with that Volcanic Light.
I've noticed this on these Jungle Shrine breakdowns. Renegades have not been particularly efficient with their Jungle Shrine, and that means that they're clearing camps when Jungle Shrine is full a lot of the time, and it's staying full for longer periods of time, and they're getting less gold from it. And while that's important, I think it also serves to highlight where Renegade's jungler is, and that's that Lasbra spending a lot of time on this left side of the map, and that's leaving this shrine open and unfinished the majority of the time. And I think the Renegades likely have one of the lower end efficiency stats on this jungle shrine, and that doesn't mean that Lasbra's playing poorly by any means. I think it's just a good way. Again, let's read the data in a proper way. I think it shows where their prioritization is on the map more than anything else. It's really setting Lasbra to that left side.
They've been doing that a lot here this game, but he's on right, at least right now. Benji's gone largely unquestioned on this Athena solo here so far. He went with the Shoes of the Magi start. And, I'll be honest, I'm not super up to date on my Athena solo build, but I like this idea from him. He needs that extra power so he can clear. And really, there's not been much action on this solo side, so it's not as if he needed a ton of extra help in the other.
And he's really trading pretty effectively so far with SoloOrTroll. And Athena solo is one that, SoloOrTroll spams ranked all day long. So I'm assuming that he's got some sort of matchup knowledge up against Athena, but I don't know how many random people in his games are playing Athena solo, and of those random people that he's playing against, are they going to be good at Athena solo? Whereas
Sure.
Benji has one of the most storied careers on Athena solo lane. Divio's played it a lot, but when I think of Athena solo, Benji's certainly one of the first that comes to mind. And there's clearly a matchup that he feels pretty comfortable in. And now that he's got Jade Emperors, I think it will be much harder for SOT to start to snowball this lane. Benji's been able to stalemate it effectively.
No, it almost certainly can't happen now, right? It feels like Jade Emperors is so good in this exact spot for our Guardians. We see Yorbid Gunders grab it over there, too. That's good work from Tingz to get really high damage onto Lasbra just now, who also doesn't have beads. I already covered that with adapting earlier, but Lasbra goes blink. And look at this back timing. There's not a lot up that he'd be farming anyway, but every time you can send this jungler back and force them to have to leave when they weren't trying to with their timings, I think it's big. It could be very advantageous.
Immediately, Lasbra goes, forget the mace, bro. I'm buying Magic D. I'm not dealing with that anytime soon. He immediately starts working towards a Runic Shield or an Anchile. I'd anticipate it on Chile for him, just because if Athena hits you with her dash, that
shouldn't necessarily need it, as Radiance have two members over here on the left-hand side, but there shouldn't be much more pressure. This is a much slower pace to this game than what we've seen in these other games up until now, aggro. It looks as though they really are getting a bit more measured on this left-hand side of the map. And remember, there was a lot of pressure from Renegades in particular in left in game number 1, and that kind of started to fade away. They went back to game number 2, and it worked much better. This time, if they were slowing down, I feel like that favors Radiance. They're the ones who have shown us up until now they're happy to coast until late and then just be better than you.
Agreed. I think that Renegades won game 2 because they snowballed duo and solo really, really effectively. The side lanes this time around have not been snowballed whatsoever. They've been stalemated, which is exactly the way that Radiance has won every single week except for last week. So not a bad start by Renegades. They aren't losing, but by not winning, I think they are kind of losing, if that tracks.
Yeah, I'm just not so sure this plays quite into their strategy. Normally, when Renegades goes into late games like this, as Benji has great pressure on Lasbra in the jungle, what we really see is that they end up putting too much pressure onto Lasbra, for my money, to really be almost the sole initiator, the sole person to give them any advantage to try and find a big team fight. So if that's what they're heading towards or skewing towards here in their late game, they could be in trouble the same way CycloneSpin doesn't seem to recognize that he is in trouble. Here's the gank. Beads come out from him early. He does use the dive bomb, but he goes right back down to look to try and get the kill on the Lasbra. They do get that kill, but it costs CycloneSpin his life as adapting comes away with the kill.
Really, really good play by Cyclone, understanding that he's basically dead to rights no matter what, but he buys enough time to make sure that Lasbra takes a ton of damage, forces Lasbra to up down where he probably doesn't really want to. It's really smart there by Cyclone.
Defender of Olympus is on cooldown. Was that used onto Cyclone and then he died before it came through? I mean, I didn't get a chance to see it there during the fight, or maybe it happened elsewhere, but it's not available now. I was expecting that to potentially come in and try and help him out, but CycloneSpin does help adapting find that first blood, and Radiance now off to a good start.
Yeah, I didn't see it either. I wonder if Benji did put it on Cyclone and we just didn't see it because of all the effects of Sunbreaker on the ground, or could have been the awkward scenario where BigManTingz steps in the middle and ends up eating it by accident.
That does happen.
Never know.
Yeah, that is something that absolutely does happen sometimes there, too. This is adapting, finding that first blood. CycloneSpin goes back, and it's the up-down from Lasbra that really seals the deal. He used that ambush, it looks like, straight up, straight back down.
solo lane-esque by him, and he's pretty far behind at this point. By the way, during that replay, SoloOrTroll gets caught out proxying on that right-hand side. So now Benji is even further ahead so far, and Adapting continues to get further ahead as well. And I can't remember exactly who was saying in one of their interviews, but someone right before a game against Renegades said that they feel like Lasbra does a lot of ganking, early on especially. And if you can stay safe and play disciplined, you're going to set him behind because he's going to spend too much time looking for ganks and not enough time farming. And I think that's what's happened here.
CycloneSpin stepping up a bit too far. The Defender of Olympus is on him this time for sure, so he will get some backup. But it just feels like a bit of stubbornness here. CycloneSpin knew Awesome Jake was here. He just was confident in the 2v1, and he was incorrect.
And it's just horrific emblem into unmissable hammer, into unmissable persistent gust, into you're dead without purification beads. And BaRRA does a great job of making sure. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just so much CC. You're not missing any of it. And it's a potent CC all at the same time. And BaRRA sets that gank up by really good wave control. He builds a big wave that is going to go against him, going to start pushing towards his tower. And Cyclone feels like, I've got no choice but to step up. But, I've got Athena ult. I'm going to need it. But it still doesn't end up mattering.
It's not enough to save his life there on that left-hand side. So that's just good work from Renegades to kind of force their hand a little bit. And I like this. I like what CycloneSpin is doing. I think he's trying to do more than just defensively play around all this pressure. He's trying to turn the aggression from Renegades in left into an advantage for Radiance around this Defender of Olympus. If they come in and we can turn it around, it is back-breaking. I'm talking about the Dark Knight Rises back-breaking for Renegades here on the left-hand side, but it did not work out for Radiance there. I like the idea with the play, though.
Just risky, because then if it doesn't go your way, instead of being back-breaking, it just further advances what Renegades want to do. And the Radiance already has such a good lead. I mean, they're still in the lead despite these last two kills on the CycloneSpin. Feel like just the more patiently Radiance play, the better it is for them. I feel like the longer this game goes, even, the better it is for Radiance. They've just proven that they have that wherewithal come late game to be a team that deserves to be favored in those situations.
It's a good point, right? And maybe no need to go for that nice back-breaking play when the long game already favors you, as BaRRaCCuDDa gets a little bit of extra farm. Was considering the back, doesn't channel it, but Aror is not getting there in time to find the actual punish onto him. Meanwhile, Benji continues his assault onto the Order side jungle, looking around. I think we haven't talked about it much, but that's been another part of why Lasbra has struggled this game. He is doing a lot of that ganking, and in that time when he's missing, Benji has been looking around in the jungle to see if there's any farm he can strip, or if Lasbra is there, just to bully him, and it's worked out well.
Yep, he's done it perfectly, because Athena, you think, oh, she's a Guardian, how is she allowed to proxy so easily? Well, she wants the wave super grouped anyways, so for shield wall to clear, so he doesn't mind tanking it for a second because it's going to clear so well. And if you show up, he just ults out, and he lives every time. It's pretty much unpunishable.
It's Radiance starting up this fight because they know that they can get Benji in way sooner than Renegades can get SoloOrTroll, and now it's the taunt onto Awesome Jake with all the Agni bombs to follow. But Awesome Jake lives through it all. The 408 doesn't go down quite that easily, and this is about time. SoloOrTroll slowly walking his way over here, so now it is going to be a bit of an even fight, except that Radiance has some low health bars. Taunt onto Lasbra. There is no immediate follow-up as the Agni bomb now comes through. River's Rebuke to lock in a couple members, but the Taiko drums bring some members low. Good ult from SOT, and he locks down Benji. Adapting, though, has the Volcanic Lightning to make it 1-for-1. Benji for Venenu.
And Hunter's chasing down junglers, trying to take them out. Lasbra falls, but Adapting has not yet, and I don't think he will. But it's still going to be a 2-for-2 at the end of the day. Radiance lose their front line, whereas Renegades lose 2 members out of their 3v3 core.
Yeah, I think that they lost the way more valuable members on the side of Renegades here, so that's good work by Renegades. They would probably trade Benji and Aror for Lasbra and Venenu almost every time. Now, the thing is, Lasbra's very far behind this game, so maybe that's not quite as valuable a trade as normal, but I think keeping him behind with the set and the year that he has had up until now, you won't hear me complain.
No, I think that's a pretty wise call to make sure that Lasbra doesn't start to snowball this game in Renegade's favor, and Las just has a tough time getting in at level 14 or level 12. He's not even close to level 14. He's level 12, just now hitting 13.
Yeah.
BigManTingz is level 17. That's a massive level disparity. And just base damage alone is going to carry this Agni's damage through what Lasbra is going to be able to live through. This Runic Shield is not going to matter too much. BigManTingz is going to blow up this Serqet pretty quickly if he can get his hands on her. And that's why Lasbra has to try and find, can't really be that one who's getting taunted in and being focused. He's got to be a little bit more wary of where Benji is in these fights, because otherwise it's not going to take long for Radiance to kill him.
Well, Renegades are the ones starting up the Gold Fury now. Aror and CycloneSpin are nearby, but Lasbra had position on them to come in and find decent damage. River's Rebuke traps in 2 members, but the rest of Radiance now showing up. They got to help out Aror, though. He's too low. Venenu cuts through him with that Taiko drums. That's big damage, and that'll be it for the Yemoja here as well. So Renegades go right back to trying to look at this Fury. They don't pull it, though. They're actually going to let SOT and Lasbra back, so maybe they aren't trying to start up this fight. In fact, it's Radiance who are positioning a bit aggressive.
Because Radiance still has a sustain at the end of the day that is relevant in these sorts of longer engagements, and Benji still has the CC that's ready to go and is going to get kills on demand, or at least force Venenu's beads, or maybe he'll hold them until it's way too late. That I understand Venenu's hesitancy. He doesn't see BigManTingz, that's sentry warded top left. He's kind of caught turning as Benji dashes. Sometimes it's just better to eat the taunt facing forward so that you can look over the shoulder of Athena and see who's going to be hitting you. Because then if he sees BigManTingz step up, he knows that, okay, I have to beads this. But because BigMan takes a little bit to walk up, doesn't see him initially, he doesn't think he needs to beads, and then you do the worst thing possible, which is beads super late.
This is good work from Radiance, trading that Pyromancer for the Gold Fury. That's going to favor the Chaos team here every single time. Gold Fury just better than the Pyromancer in most cases. But I think that what is another thing that's worth talking about here is Awesome Jake, because remember how that fight started with Radiance on the Gold Fury? That was with Benji ulting over, and they just taunted the furthest forward member to try and blow them up quick, but it was Awesome Jake. And I'm not sure if he had the Spirit Robe for that fight in particular or not, but if that's how it's going to keep going, then Spirit Robe is an excellent pickup in general going forward, right? Because when that trap snaps shut, it's just not going to work on Awesome Jake nearly as well. Even if he doesn't get the ultimate off, he's just going to be taking way less damage.
Spirit Robe should be bought against every Athena game ever. Like,
yeah.
This item is bonkers, and it blows my mind that it doesn't get bought so often. It's all prot, it's cooldown reduction, it's crowd control reduction, which is huge, and then damage mitigation when you want it the most. And it's not like it's a 60-second cooldown or a 45-second cooldown. This happens basically every time you get taunted. It's insane. Buy this item all the time. If you're a frontliner and you're not buying Spirit Robe, you're probably trolling, because it's just so good.
It is a fantastic item. I am a big fan of this one myself, and it's working great here for Awesome Jake. SoloOrTroll looked like he had it, though, with all those Agni bombs. He didn't take as much damage as I quite would have thought, but he lives through it well. Radiance, now positioning around the Fire Giant, and they feel favored in this fight after the poke that they just got. So they're starting it up. Want to see if they can force Renegades to step in. There's the dash taunt onto Venenu, and he's really gotten already what he wants. The beads out there from him. No, Venenu didn't have them. It was just the Taiko drum CC immunity. And Venenu's in trouble anyway in the backline without the ult and no beads. They gobble him up. The River's Rebuke has everyone trapped in, and Renegades are way too low. Lasbra gets the kill on Aurora in the backline, but now he's stuck in the back with low HP. As elusive as Serqet can be, BigManTingz tracks him down with one of those bombs, and it's a 2-for-1.
Oh, and SoloOrTroll gets his back interrupted. Benji's still there. Is going to continue to zone. Lasbra's just put so much focus into killing Aurora. It just hasn't really been worth his time, and it's only going to become less important to kill this support.
I wish I had time to talk about how smart Benji is. He doesn't stop Awesome Jake, who can't TP back in, but does stop SOT, who can TP back in. That's perfect. But Radiance can't do the Fire Giant in the back. That's great work from BaRRA, who is the only member nearby to delay them just enough so that they wouldn't be able to pick up the objective, and Radiance has to reset.
And now BaRRA has no relics, which is really difficult. Man, I swear I could just hear Aror laughing, you know, and doing the Aror clap and everything. The use Serqet ult on me every fight. Yeah, that's what you want to do, because that's what he wants you to do. Like that is exactly his whole hopes and dreams. Is the assassin is going to suicide to kill him every fight, and Lasbra just hasn't been able to find any other priority targets because he's been using Last Breath on Aror, because they're not building anti-heal. Well, now they have it, at least, the Divine Ruin. They do have some anti-heal this game, but I feel like that Renegades have identified that this Yemoja is going to be a problem in these team fights, but I just don't know that using Lasbra's whole kit to make sure that Aurora dies every fight is really worth their time.
It is worth noting, I mean, Radiance don't do the Fire Giants. That last fight, I think, is favorable for Renegades, even though they didn't exactly win it. It's just look at the game state. They're only down about 3,000 or so gold, not even. And Aurora taking quite a bit of damage. They're very much still in this game, are the Order side team here this time of Renegades. But Awesome Jake taking a lot of extra free poke there in mid, does make it out of there. Meanwhile, CycloneSpin is pushing up in left, and he could be in trouble because BaRRaCCuDDa and Lasbra are on their way to try and deal with them. He has beads and Aegis and the ultimate for this, but he doesn't want to have to use them. There are the beads. Now Defender of Olympus comes out, and that's a big win for Renegades.
Huge, and that's exactly what Lasbra should be doing in a position like that. Just don't dump the whole kit, don't overextend, just go in, make sure that Cyclone uses something, make sure that Benji uses his ult, and then back it up. And now you've got a much better priority target that you can try and all in the back line come next team fight.
He should be looking for CycloneSpin. There should be big neon letters above this Hoi that says no beads, and you can lock him down quite easily. BaRRaCCuDDa will grab red buff, but this next fight, at least for now, looks like it'll be happening around the Fury. A lot of people on the left-hand side, at least if CycloneSpin and Aurora are, Lasbra and BaRRaCCuDDa nearby as well. But it looks like they're not going to just stick around here, at least not BaRRaCCuDDa. He's backing. Lasbra's still floating, and there won't be any big fight the second that it spawns, so we'll have a little bit more time to breathe.
Oracle Vision here for Radiance. Wouldn't be surprised to see Radiance try and step up and be the first ones in. BigManTingz just got a huge buy for himself, which is that Charon's coin. Now, even with that Spirit Robe passive there for Jake and SoloOrTroll, I think it's going to be a little bit easier to take them down off these Athena taunts. That extra 20% pen makes a big difference.
Still no beads for CycloneSpin. Another 75 seconds before he has those. So this fight for Radiance is not without some risk. Awesome Jake is the early target, but he takes the brunt of all of it. Finds the hammer, then transform. Radiance are considering the disengage on the back of the River's Rebuke being used, but there's the Taiko drums. They want to bring Aurora back in, and I don't think Awesome Jake could be the priority target anymore. SoloOrTroll is low in the back, still somehow alive, and finds some turned around damage, but now it's Adapting's turn. He goes right for Venenu way in the back of the fight as BaRRaCCuDDa shuts down CycloneSpin, but Lasbra should get his life traded back out, but the dash doesn't land. Doesn't matter. Tingz is there for the damage, but what about Adapting? He's still in the front line as BaRRaCCuDDa gets a double. It's a 3-for-1 for Renegades.
What a split fight there from Radiance. I mean, SoloOrTroll blinks in and finds a really good initiation, and Aurora's ultimate separates the fight pretty effectively as Benji's actually come back looking for Venenu on this gold.
Does get the beads out from him. Tingz gets the kill onto BaRRaCCuDDa, and he does end up dying for it, but they delay the kill onto this Fury, and with these low health bars, Benji might be able to do even more damage here. Has the dash charged up, taunts in Tingz, there's the shield wall. Not going to be quite enough damage, so Benji dashing back out has to give up on this for now, but he's already done enough work. The Fury still stands.
Man, that's huge, because it felt like Renegades might have been able to take over this game on the back of that Primal Fury. They could have maybe staggered some kills, gone towards fire, but BigManTingz and Benji do great work in order to make sure that that doesn't happen. That fight looked like it was going to go so much better for Radiance that I'm almost unsure of what really happened, because Jake takes tons of damage right off the bat, but Radiance did use a considerable amount of resources on him. They used 2 Agni bombs
I think that is
and
what
a
happened,
Athena taunt. They used a lot on Jake, and then Jake doesn't dash away. He jumps forward and gets ready to set up onto where SoloOrTroll. But I don't know how BaRRa got loose in the backline there, because he really did not get tracked at all, and he's able to free cast for the vast majority of that fight. He got straight into Radiance's backline. Adapting was kind of preoccupied was looking for the cleanup kill on the backside, was forcing Venenu's Aegis. Then he ults to try and make sure that SoloOrTroll and Jake die. Both of them end up living, which is obviously a bad news situation, but BaRRA really was not under pressure at all until the very end when BigManTingz dashed in when Renegades was on that Primal Fury.
But it feels to me like all the tension in this set is on Radiance. Renegades are the ones who are overperforming right now for my money, so they're playing a bit with house money. The Primal Fury down to half, and Lasbra has looped around all the way to the back of the fight. There's even a ward. I don't think that they know that he's got this position. He goes for Tings early on in the fight with the Cobra's Kiss. SoloOrTroll has grabbed Benji as well, and the Taiko drums stuffs adapting point blank. SOT still living even now somehow, finally dies to CycloneSpin's damage, but Venenu gets aggressive, finds the double kill as Benji falls as well. Renegades are still holding on in this game. Now they've got the lead.
Adapting just blinked and dipped his pinky toe in the last second of BaRRaCCuDDa's persistent gust, and it knocked him up, and Adapting never got to play by the time he hit the ground. He got one shot by Taiko drums and Jing autos, and I don't think he ever saw that persistent gust. That was huge for him to hit that. That changes the entire course of that team fight. That he would have killed both backliners there. Neither one had relics. I think Adapting would have found a double.
Lasbra has the positioning again. Cobra's Kiss coming for BigManTingz, but he doesn't have the damage. Tings just shrugs it off. But BaRRaCCuDDa's the one that's in range now. Lands the autos, and Lasbra takes care of Aror. Venenu, Thunder crashing in aggressively, wants a little bit more damage, but there's not much more there. Renegades can kind of smell the blood in the water. They're the aggressors right now as they head back towards the Primal Fury, but Tings is still nearby with CycloneSpin. They've got damage, and they're healthy, so I don't think Renegades can do this Primal Fury easily. In fact, CycloneSpin dashes forward. He wants this kill on the Lasbra, adapting Volcanic Lightnings, and still can't quite close the distance as Lasbra continues to evade, but all this extra movement speed should allow him to catch up, but a good Cobra's Kiss at the end takes him out of it and lets him get away.
And somehow Radiance get Primal Fury after all of that, which is absolutely absurd. Really smart there by Lasbra, because by hitting that Cobra's Kiss, it cancels the Magma Rush, and that Erendite proc was just about to wear off as well, which was giving Adapting that extra movement speed. But you saw at the very beginning of that clip right there, the replay, where Adapting gets knocked up by that persistent gust, and then one shot by Venenu and BaRRaCCuDDa. I think Radiance might just win the game off of that initiation, because Adapting played it perfectly. He waited, the attention was somewhere else. Renegade's backline's buttons were down. No persistent gust ready for BaRRaCCuDDa because it was already on the ground, but it somehow clipped Adapting, and he never got to ult them both.
Look at the dual lane for Renegades. 1-0-11 for Awesome Jake. 4-1-8 for BaRRaCCuDDa. They're having a great set this game, and that's by design, right? Renegades are trying to play through those two guys. That's where they tried to establish their lead. Lasbra sat on that side of the map all game, and it's starting to pair out here for them a bit. I talked earlier about how I thought Awesome Jake might be a bit of a sitting duck on this pick, but it's been the opposite. I don't think that focusing Awesome Jake at the start of the fights is gonna work.
No, he's too tanky at this point. I mean, level 17, he's got Mantle of Discord now. I think you really have to save Jake for later in the fight. Use him to bait the rest of the team in, but you can't be using multiple Agni bombs on these frontliners.
Not going to be sustainable in the long run. I think Awesome Jake is starting to realize now the Agni bomb is not going to be the follow-up off the taunt anymore. I don't even think he cares so much when he's the one getting taunted in, as the Fire Giant was started and dropped. But now maybe they can commit a good stun from CycloneSpin, but Jake leaps away from with the underhand tactics. Now the Fire Giant being started up by Radiance, down to half HP. The whole squad is here to hang out. Benji goes to be the frontliner for it, but gets caught on the ring. Jake transforms as Lasbra, way off to the side, has been caught out. Uses the Deathbane to get away from all the aggression. He should be okay as the fight starts to reset.
And that's perfect for Radiance. I mean, they let their guy with the global ultimate take all the damage. They get Taiko drums and Frenzy out from Renegades. That's huge.
They want to lock down SOT with this River's Rebuke. It works for a moment. They taunt him back in, but SoloOrTroll lives through it all. Awesome Jake limps in aggressively, but Adapting got the kill, and now he can keep right on going towards Awesome Jake, who doesn't have any mobility available. It's a double kill for Adapting on the late game. Pele doing his best Lasbra impression as BaRRaCCuDDa gets the dash, caught out by the Agni Stums, and the rest of Radiance are right there to get the kill. I think that was Odibo procs that almost got one posthumously, but did not. Radiance get a 3-for-0.
And now this should be an easy Fire Giant for Radiance. They just got to keep track of exactly where Lasbra and Venenu are. They should have some ward coverage coming on Lasbra, but they actually don't until right now. They know where he is.
And BigManTingz turns around, finds the stun, and the jig is up. Lasbra should know he doesn't really have much potential to stop this here, but Venenu is still nearby on this Raijin as well, but Benji taunts him, and everyone knows he's a sitting duck.
Way.
He's too late. Wait, no, they get it! Renegades strip it away! That had to have been Tingz to set that up somehow. Radiance had every opportunity, and they couldn't clean it up.
Ben was trying to dash away, got his dash interrupted, and then thought, whatever, dude.
I'll just dash
I'll
in.
go in then. I may as well. And he gets it with that Thunder Crash proc. It's only on Lasbra right now, but that is huge for the Renegades.
Yeah, that part doesn't even matter.
To keep themselves in this game. Who cares who has it on Renegades? All that matters is that 5 members of Radiance don't have an enhanced Fire Giant on their side.
And I saw the R come up. I'm like, Radiance must have just secured this the right way. No, it's Renegades who grab it. Look at this taunt. Just a smidgen too early, and he gets it with the Thunder Crash. That's crazy that Venenu makes that play. And Venenu occasionally does make big plays exactly like that for the team. He's so consistent as kind of just like your role player for the team who doesn't always stand out, but sometimes he makes those big plays when you need them, and that was one of them.
It's like Benji turned Venenu's camera to Fire Giant, and Ben goes, all right, bet. And just jumps in. And ends
that's
up
kind of
taking
low. I might go in there.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. That is looking pretty tasty right now. I don't know, man. I mean, he's dead there no matter what. He has no beads, so you may as well try and make the hero play. And boy, does he. That is massive for Renegades, man. I mean, that keeps them in this game in a way that it looks like they may not be.
So Radiance still have a slight lead, but we're 33 minutes in. I mean, a 4,000 gold lead at this point. Not tremendous at all. Renegades can certainly fight, but they don't need this. They don't need Awesome Jake taking a bunch of free poke before the fight's even started. Good work from Radiance to poke him out, and now they can start up this Primal Fury. And really, Renegades can't step in, but good thing it's not Oni. Primal is not a backbreaker at this point in the game. Renegades can give that up safely and head back to defend.
Yeah, they already stole the Fire Giant that mattered, so they don't care too much about Primal at this point. That is 2 Primal Furies though for Radiance, which now you've got 14% extra damage and damage mitigation against that Fire Giant if there is a next one. So that's relevant information. Makes it pretty easy for Radiance to step in and steal one that Renegades begins or try and secure the next one. But for the moment, Renegades are kind of chilling. Frankly, they don't have a whole lot to worry about. I don't think that Radiance can start sieging Phoenixes by any stretch. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see Radiance group up and try and push for a tier 2 at this point. Just try and use something of this 5,000 gold lead. But 5,000 gold at 34 minutes isn't really relevant. I mean, 6 items for everyone on Renegades except for Jake. Same thing can be said for Radiance. I mean, the biggest news is that Cyclone has already sold his boots and now picked up a Titan's Bane. That's huge. But outside of that, I don't think it really matters.
Aggression from Renegades on the right-hand side, though. I saw that ping on the Tier 2 tower, and that was Renegades considering grouping up over here and fighting. They're still near FG, so this is an okay place to take fights, and maybe you can bait in a member of Radiance like this. Benji has been stunned and knocked up, but that is a very tanky Athena, not going to be much of a viable target. In fact, he dashes in for a 2-man taunt of his own to start the fight, and Adapting in left is trying to fight too, and Venenu barrel stuffs again with the Taiko drums. Adapting goes down early. Benji low as well, has to dash back out, but what about Aror? Good Riptide allows him to escape. He tries to evade the extra damage, but ends up dying from the dot that had to be the Raiju that got in and sets up for a double.
Now SoloOrTroll blinks forward, finds Cyclone, but great damage from Tingz. The passive damage not there. SoloOrTroll no teleport, so he can't come back into this fight. So that may have ended that engagement, but 2 important kills onto 2 frontliners there for Radiance. Well, 1 frontliner and a jungler. And that was a huge taunt by Benji. BigManTingz gets good damage off. BaRRaCCuDDa way too late on the beads. Kind of has the same problem that Venenu had earlier, where he thinks, oh, there's no one close enough. But at this point in the game, you kind of have to insta-beads taunts that big because you know Radiance are going to heavy commit. But Adapting just can't find his way into that team fight. Lasbra has really changed targets very effectively recently in these team fights. He's found really good flanks and much better targets with those Lasbras.
I didn't think this is going to be this good of a set here, Ryan. If I'm being honest, I mean, I come into every set pumped and ready, but this is one that I really thought might not go the full distance. But Renegades are giving Radiance everything they've got right now, and it's still up in the air. Anybody could win it. In fact, Renegades have position on this Fire Giant fight, which means they can get that vision control around it. They might be ever so slightly favored if they can hold on to defensive positioning. SOT starts it up, but not going to be a heavy commit. Radiance come in and nix everything I said about positioning as they reclaim it. But still, Renegades are right here in this one, 37 minutes in.
Man, it's close, and relics being down for both Aror and Jake are important, but Jake's relics are just on lower cooldowns, so he's going to have his up first. Adapting's beads are pretty much synced with BaRRaCCuDDa's, so you won't see a huge relic advantage. Really, the biggest advantage on the map right now is the fact that Radiance has those 2 primal buffs on their side, so they can afford to tank this fire for a long period of time without a whole lot of worry.
Very nearly got the lockdown the Lasbra. That forces Awesome Jake to jump in. He thought it would be worse than it actually was. It still ends up okay, though. They can't commit, so Lasbra goes on to BigManTingz way in the back, force him to dash and use the beads. That's good if Lasbra can get back out. Now Ting should be vulnerable for their next fight.
And even though Lasbra has to use his blink and his beads, he's got Relic Dagger, so those are going to be up pretty soon. But I love this from Radiance. Don't hesitate. You know Lasbra has to reset.
Never surrender. They're going right back in the Thunder Gun way as this is more aggression from Awesome Jake. He's made his way all the way to the back line and forced out 2. Defender of Olympus gets Benji right back into the fray, but they've lost Tings. He's been the centerpiece of this whole operation. Venenu binds the ultimate onto Aror as well, so maybe Renegades with the 5v3 can try and put this game to bed, but they don't get ahead of themselves. They come right back to the FG, grab that objective so they can be ready for the siege.
Man, Tings half panic dashes kind of into the wall, but Jake catches him mid-dash with that hammer. And Jake just laser focused on the enemy mid laner. Knows he has no beads, jump in, horrific hammer right on top of Tings. And as soon as that happens, he's dead. Even without the hammer, honestly. As soon as Tings gets horrific, he's pretty much dead. And I think that there's not, I don't know how many supports just jump in right away. And that's a PBM play, that's an Aror play, that's a Jake play. That's willing to just turn off the brain for a second and get in there. And that's what you need out of your support. And I think that Jake has played so well these last 2 games on this Fafnir that Renegades might be about to win the set.
Maybe 5 seconds before Tings and Aurora are back up, though, so they'll be here for the defense. It's just a mid-Phoenix for Renegades for now, but this is huge for them to be able to start making some plays with that momentum. Obviously, we're at the point in the game now where it's the enhanced Fire Giant that the fellas are working with, so they don't have to worry nearly as much about minions and backdoor protections. But I think this is why Awesome Jake being added to this team was so important, because you're right, he reacts to the play, doesn't he? Remember what happened with Lasbra right near the Pyromancer? It didn't end up amounting to a whole lot, but it looked like Lasbra was going to be locked down, so Jake was in there instantly. Lasbra makes it out, so does Jake. It doesn't end up being a big deal, but it's the same kind of play you mentioned when it came to Tings. When Jake thinks he's needed, he's in there before he even really thinks, I think.
Hey, that's what you need, man. Who needs to think when you're a frontliner, am I right? They just get in there and they don't have to think. All their buttons are unmissable and they're so tanky it doesn't matter. That's the whole bit. But I think that you and I were talking about this before we even went live with SPL today. I think a big problem for a lot of players across a lot of different games is that they're too scared to die. They're so scared about their KDA getting ruined or getting memed by chat or just they feel like if they're dying, they're doing something wrong. And that's just really not the case at a competitive level. There are so many fights where your job is to die in a team fight. And Jake, no matter what you want to say about the guy, he has never, for 1 second, been scared to die. Ever. Under any circumstances. And I think that that's a huge deal for him and this team.
Certainly tough to teach, so fortunately, Awesome Jake came in with that already pre-installed. Renegades have 4 members in left. Lasbra threatening all the way over in right. And we don't normally see splits quite this wide, but there is no mid-Phoenix, so he's got to come all the way over there and try and threaten and force Adapting's hand there. Now the rest of Renegades can get aggressive in left. Tingz is in trouble all the way in the back, is able to dash back out of there and stay alive, but the left side Phoenix now goes down. Renegades starting to look like they are in control in the game number 3, the decider match up against Radiance.
Benji just dashed in mid. I wonder if Jake's going to go for him. Decides not to. Holds back on the trigger that time. Yeah, that caught me off guard, personally, to watch Jake not jump in that situation, but smart, because BaRRA and Ven were going for a red buff. They were pretty far away.
Renegades now grouping up around the last big objective left on the map, the right side Phoenix, to see if they can make the siege happen here. No defensive relics for Aror, no beads for BigManTingz. Those two more vulnerable than usual. Benji comes in for the taunt, can't find much. Lasbra and SoloOrTroll have the flank on the backside, so the River's Rebuke to try and lock in 2 members doesn't quite work. Awesome Jake and BaRRaCCuDDa make it out of there easily, but Lasbra going to keep minions pumping in. He wants to keep threatening on this Titan and break up the defense from Radiance.
Airstrike is down now for BaRRaCCuDDa, though. That River's Rebuke forced it, so that is a win for Radiance. He's a lot more vulnerable, especially now without beads.
Oh, but Benji's taking a lot of damage. He must have dashed in. He's just walking back out. He finally has that dash available. There it is, and makes it out, but it's even more pressure now for Radiance. Aror stuck on the front line with no relics trying to help him escape. BigManTingz wants to peel. Aror gets the Riptide off, and they do taunt in SOT, but he lives through it all. Meanwhile, the Titan now starting to be under duress from a few more minions. They force those back out. Radiance hold on to their actual base, and I think they're going to try and take this fight. SOT is low, but they couldn't quite get the kill, so Adapting blinks in with a Volcanic Lightning. Venenu's in some trouble in the back. Could this be the turnaround, as Adapting has found himself a double kill and continues to output the damage? Tingz takes care of BaRRaCCuDDa, and Awesome Jake is suddenly left all alone, so he's trying to jump back, pull Radiance back towards the Titan, away from their own base as Lasbra threatens mid-Phoenix.
And Jake buys some time. Lasbra gets that mid-Phoenix, and the Titan is under siege right now. 2k health and dropping here on Radiance's ultimate objective. They'll be able to defend. That left side wave is going to need defending.
Well,
it's a long respawn timer, Finch, but I think that they can at least push out these waves. I don't even know about a Phoenix right now. I love what Lasbra's doing, though. He's sitting on a sentry ward. I don't think he's got the damage to end by himself, though. I think that this would just ultimately reset the Titan.
Perhaps, but Lasbra's going to give it a go. He will walk over at least 1 sentry ward, but all of Radiance are on the Fire Giant. I don't know if they'll be able to back quickly if need be. Tingz does end up backing, while the rest of the squad takes care of the FG, but look how low this Titan is, and it is so far away from ever healing back up again, aggro. At this point, it's so difficult for Radiance to take any fights. Really, they got to just be taking this FG, clearing what jungle they can, and starting to get ready to back, because if Renegades find a path through, they can just end the game.
I kind of like what Cyclone, Aror, and Adapting are doing. They're just staying grouped as 3 and hoping that someone comes to clear speed. But BaRRaCCuDDa might be able to catch them as he's kind of going over in his passive. And it's only 3 members, and there's likely to be 5 waiting for them wherever they end up springing the trap.
Now, this is risky, but Radiance kind of have to play risky because they can't just play for base defense anymore. They're too low. So the Riptide is used to try and catch off some members aggressively. Doesn't work. They're on the disengage. SoloOrTroll has spotted them out. They regroup with Adapting, but now the pincer maneuver is on. SoloOrTroll blinks in. Adapting suddenly left in a bad spot, but Benji is able to use the ultimate to suddenly show up. Adapting forces Lasbra out of the fight, but what about minions? Minions starting to pour in to the Titan room. Someone's got to be there to defend, and no one is. Tingz finally makes his way back, but will he get there in time? It is a big taunt that brings a couple members in for a lot of damage, but Tingz has got to keep this Titan upright. BaRRaCCuDDa gets the kill into Aror, but CycloneSpin cuts down another member. Venenu gets the double kill, and that should be it, aggro. I don't know how 2 members can defend from all these directions.
BigManTingz has got to go full Whirlwind here. Hurry did it. It had a couple huge Titan defenses, but this one looks a little bit too tough. Huge fire waves coming from the left-hand side.
This is such a big deal for the Renegades, boys, that they found a way to upset Radiance all the way to Game 3, 45 minutes on the clock, and they're able to shut down one of the super teams, one of the best super teams we've ever had.
Impressive from Renegades, and they do it 2 different ways, too, and I think that's relevant. Game 2, where they win, they stomp it out, and they get really ahead early on, and they really just never give Radiance a chance. Game 3, is much closer from beginning to end, and Renegades just make better plays throughout the course of the game. I think that Jake has got to be the MVP of this set, though. This Fafnir games 2 and 3 absolutely changed the entire dynamic of the set.
He really did have an impressive set here. Lasbra had a great performance too. Rip to my predictions. It's only the first set, and already things are already in chaos. Congrats to Renegades on their big win. Let me get it back over to the desk so they can break it down.
Rip your predictions, rip everyone's predictions. I don't think anyone really expected Radiance, who've looked so good as of late, getting defeated by Renegades. Myth, I'm a bit disappointed though. I was hoping the minions would win the game on their own. Talk to me about how they need to improve those minions, first of all, like ending games, because they can't be doing that, you know? They've got to push a little bit harder there.
I mean, we know that minions have a high peak performance. You get that Oni Fury buff on them. I don't really think that's Oni Fury making them stronger. It's just bringing out their latent potential. If the minions just wanted a little bit more, they could have ended that incredibly easily. Instead, it really does come down to the boys in red. Renegades take it themselves into their own hands. An impressive play. Aggro points it out perfectly that Awesome Jake initiated every single fight around the objectives. We saw nearly 20 minutes of a dance around the Fire Giant, and it's constantly Jake getting into the back line, Jake stunning out their front line, making these facilitating plays, and trading his life very rarely. I think he had maybe 2 deaths that game, but not for lack of trying. Jake, not scared of dying in the slightest, took the most aggressive positioning in every single fight.
Yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about that frenzy as well that Jake had. We've seen it a couple of times on the supports, but he made very good use of that in the team fights. Venenu really showed up in that last game too, had a great performance, and funny enough, there's the replay we're going to see. This Thunder Crash that steals it away. We were talking, it's not a whole ton of damage on Thunder Crash either, is it? When you think about the actual just raw damage it's going to bring out.
Especially considering that's the first tick, that preemptive strike on Thunder Crash. It really doesn't get the majority of the damage until Raijin lands from it. Instead, he gets it immediately. And I think Aggro really pointed out the mentality behind it perfectly. He was literally about to walk away, the Raijin that is, gets taunted, looks at Fire Giant, says, "Oh, word, it's literally one shot? Guess I'm dead either way. Let me pick it up." And he does. And that keeps Renegades in the game long enough to eventually win it. I mean, Ben had a very quiet games 1 and 2, but in game 3, he really did go full hero mode.
I mean, I guess it took him 3 games of Raijin in a row to get there, but at least the result was there, you know? Renegades find the 2-1 victory over Radiance then. And I think that's the interesting thing about this now is that Radiance are now back-to-back defeats. They had Rival, lost last week. They've just lost to Renegades here. They've got Sanguine on Sunday, and I think a lot of fans might be, you know, maybe reconsidering their vote options at the moment with how that one just went to make sure they can try and get those viewer points in. But the league is getting tight, Mifflin. Again, we thought we were starting to see a gap. I thought Radiance were the top dog. It doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Week 4, into week 5, they've started to show signs of struggle.
And they have to be concerned going into Sanguine. This is a team that has actually been reflecting on the leaderboard, their top positioning. If we see Sanguine take it over Radiance, there's going to be a huge shift in the standings. Right now, it's really only Sanguine and Rival that are looking nearly unstoppable, the 2 teams that only have 1 loss so far. I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't expecting Renegades to come out on top today. My vote went towards Radiance. I'm losing out on points personally. So are 90% of the other voters in our scene. That's absolutely nuts. And it really does come down to that duo lane focus. We saw it every single game. Renegades didn't want to give it up, and they absolutely didn't have to.
Now look at the standings that you just saw. Look at the schedule too. That PKE United set is really important because Renegades, they've got Obey on Sunday, and we know the struggles Obey have had. So Renegades could catapult, if things change up between E United and PK, into almost a 4th, 5th position. It's pretty good look for them there. Let's have a little look, tune in though, because obviously I was just talking about the Raijin made himself today, Venenu. He's standing by for an interview with John Finch.
Thanks, Hindu and Caleb. And how could I talk to anyone else other than Venenu after that performance that you just had there, my man? First things first, I'm just going to give you a moment to talk to me. What does it mean for you guys to be able to get a win in that fashion up against such a big team like Radiance?
It definitely feels really good for us. I think obviously we didn't really expect to do too good coming out of the start, but I think it was really good for us to be able to get a win and get going. I mean, we kind of just need to work on some stuff. I mean, they weren't the cleanest games. I think The last game, I think we just played better than them the last game, even though it was super, super close. I think, I don't know if our team comp actually wins the late game, but I think we played really, really clean. And I'm happy on how everybody played. And I'm excited to keep doing that and just keep working on everything.
Well, I got to take you back to the Fire Giant play, obviously, right, where you get that steal. What were you thinking in that moment? I mean, it looks like you get it with the first part of the Thunder Crash in with the Raijin to being taunted. What were the comms like in that moment, and what were you thinking?
Okay, so if you see it, I dash away, and then he taunts me back. BigManTingz did the same thing I did on Agni, where I Aegis on Fire Giant. And I was like, okay, I mean, I got it stolen when I Aegis on fire, so I did the same thing, and I just dashed in, and then I stole it, and I was like, oh, well, we don't lose here, so that feels pretty good. Yep.
I mean, it was a big turnaround play for the whole squad. Well, more than that, just talk to me about how this team was able to refocus, because you all did have some struggles coming in, but Jake has played really well. Obviously, Lasbra's having an excellent season here as well, too. What do you think has really helped this team sort of gel together? I mean, I imagine Ro deserves a lot of that credit there, too.
Yeah, Ro's been really good on helping Jake. Since he's a brand new person, like going into the season, it felt really nice for Ro to be able to help somebody new and like help him grow and like mend him for what we needed for the team. And we all like that personally, and we can all work on ourselves and like what we need to do better as a team and grow from that. And then currently, as it's like sort of like mending out and like what he likes to play, and then we kind of work with that and like work with what he does. He brings a new aspect to it. I mean, the meme is he doesn't really care about his KDA and everything like that. But outside of that, like Jake is actually a very, very good player. And I think that he's already been respected by a lot of the pros currently. And I think he should be probably very, very commended for what he's been doing and how fast he's been growing, to be honest with you. It's actually kind of crazy.
With the performances he's been having lately, I think you'd be a fool not to respect him at this point. Venenu, man, I appreciate you taking some time. Congratulations on that win. And that's just the first set. I need a moment to breathe after that one. So give us some time. We'll be right back with set number 2.